What's going on, everybody? I am Gerald Moore Jr., founder of Ohio Cannabis Report, and today we have the Ohio House Judiciary Committee hearing where the politicians will be going over the changes for SB 56. So this is a sub-bill, and basically this is a bill gutting the current cannabis legislation in the state of Ohio. Over 2.7 million voters voted for issue 2, which would basically eliminate criminalization, would allow a path forward for communities hit hardest by the war on drugs, and create opportunities for economic development, workforce development, and things of that nature. So there's a lot of opposition against these bills that are being rushed through, and the politicians want to try to get this through before the summer break. And so be tuned. It starts at 9, so it should be starting here shortly. I'm going to log off, and I'll probably come back in as testimonies and hearing continues throughout the day. So please pay attention. Also, be sure to follow us on all social media platforms. Be sure to subscribe to us here on YouTube. Make sure you like and comment, support the channel. Also, be sure to follow us on Instagram at Ohio Cannabis Report. Follow us on on X. Follow us on TikTok as well. Also, I'm always looking for interns and people who are interested in working in the cannabis industry. If you are a journalist major, communications major, somebody that likes to speak on camera or wants to be in a career such as journalism or social media marketing, or even policy and government, please reach out to us, and we can conduct an interview and see if you're a fit for the team. So again, please tune in. I'm about to log off right now. Get the big screen up.
Judiciary Committee will come to order. Good morning. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Chair Thomas.
Here.
Ranking Member Isaacson.
Here.
Representative Callender.
Good morning. I'm here.
Representative Matthews.
Here.
Representative Mohammed.
Here.
Representative Odioso.
Here.
Representative Olslager. Representative Plummer. Representative Stewart.
Here.
Representative Sinnenberg.
Here.
Representative Timms. Representative Williams.
We have a quorum present and will proceed as a full committee. The minutes from the previous meeting are on your iPads. Please review the minutes. Are there any objections to the minutes? Hearing none, the minutes are approved. A reminder, in order to record audio or video of this committee, you must submit an AV request form to my legislative aide, Mr. Smith. All the supporting documents and testimony can be found on your iPads. If the public wishes to be informed about upcoming hearings, please visit the Judiciary Committee website and sign up to be on the distribution list. We are going to start with House Bill number 203. Sorry. No testimony was submitted for House Bill 203. This concludes the third hearing for House Bill 203. I'd now like to call up House Bill 168 for its third hearing. No testimony was submitted for House Bill 168. This concludes the third hearing for House Bill 168. I'd now like to call up House Bill 302 for its first hearing. Representative Workman is here to provide sponsored testimony, and Representative Plummer will be here shortly. When you are ready, please proceed. Good morning, Representative Plummer.
Good morning, Chair Thomas, Ranking Member Isaacson, and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to provide sponsor testimony on House Bill 302. This bill aims to create a safer online experience for children by establishing a balanced and practical framework for digital safety, and one that promotes shared responsibility among parents, app developers, and app stores. Our goal is to ensure that families are protected and empowered in today's rapidly changing digital world without sacrificing personal privacy or technological innovation. We've all seen the risks that exist for children online, from inappropriate content and manipulative advertising to interactions with strangers or exposure to unregulated features. It's clear that the digital environment presents serious challenges. But the burden of addressing these challenges cannot and should not fall on just one group. We need a system that reflects the roles that each participant plays in the ecosystem. That's exactly what House Bill 302 sets out to do. Current proposals, including some seen in other states and at the federal level, often rely on sweeping requirements that sound helpful but have unintended consequences. For example, proposals that force app stores to share broad data about children with all apps on a device, regardless of need, may actually increase privacy risks. Others seem to tell parents exactly how they must supervise their children, taking decision-making out of the hands of families themselves. House Bill 302 rejects those approaches in favor of a framework based on cooperation and clear lines of responsibility. Under the bill, app stores and developers are assigned distinct roles, while parents remain firmly in control of their children's data and digital experience. This approach protects children while respecting the different capacities and expertise of each party involved. The bill outlines responsibilities for app stores, which serve as key access points for digital content. The app stores will provide age-appropriate information to help developers provide age-appropriate experiences. App stores would facilitate access to industry-standard age signals where available. This includes tools for parental involvement and privacy protections built in. makes it easier for parents to stay in control. App stores would allow apps to surface parental controls in a single location, like a centralized dashboard. This provides parents with more effective tools to manage activities across different apps. App stores encourage innovation in age assurance. Developers could implement their own age estimation systems if they meet safety and privacy requirements. App distribution providers must provide the technical ability for developers to call an age signal where sharing is agreed upon. These duties reflect what app stores are uniquely positioned to do: provide infrastructure, support consistency, and enable parental oversight in a scalable, privacy-conscious way. But the work of safety does not end there. App developers who understand the intricacies of their own platforms are responsible for implementing practical protections tailored to the risks present in their apps. And I will now turn it over to my joint sponsor, Representative Plummer, to speak to you about what the developers' responsibilities will be.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks for committee for having us in. Developers ensure age signals are used safely and responsibly. There'd be a clear consequence for improper use of age verification information. Developers must request only minimal information needed and cannot share the age signal with third parties unless necessary for safety and privacy measures or required by law. Require the right safety measures within apps. If the user is not an adult, developers will be required to appropriately gate access to high-risk content and features. They must make a reasonable effort proportionate to the risk to ensure minors cannot engage in adult-only activities. Prohibit the use of children's data to target ads. Limiting data collection and targeted advertising for children improves privacy and safety. This division of responsibility works because it reflects how the ecosystem actually functions. App developers have intimate understanding of their product features, risk, and user experience, and are best positioned to make decisions about safety and controls and content gating. App stores can provide consistent tools, centralized access points, but they should not be forced to manage risk they cannot fully access. Parents, meanwhile, retain the final say in whether their children's age data is shared, with whom, and under what circumstances. This model also avoids some of the pitfalls of broader regulatory mandates. It does not require developers to take on unnecessary burdens if their app possesses minimal risk. It does not give app stores the power to impose rigid restrictions that may not apply to every child or every family. And it does not open the door to mass sharing of children's data, which we know can backfire and lead to unintended harm. House Bill 302 is structured to provide meaningful protections where they're needed without overreaching into areas where they are not. Finally, this legislation is designed to evolve alongside technology. By allowing for flexible age verification methods and recognizing that not all digital content is the same, we give developers and app stores room to innovate while still holding them accountable for safety and privacy. House Bill 302 reflects the reality that online safety is a shared obligation. One cannot be met through blanket rules or one-size-fits-all mandates. It protects children by requiring meaningful safeguards, protects families by keeping them in control, and protects privacy by ensuring data is used only when necessary. It's a thoughtful, responsible, and effective step towards safer online experience for Ohio children. Thank you again, Chair Thomas and members of the committee, for your time and consideration, and we'd like to open this up for any questions you may have.
Great. Thank you for your testimony. Are there any questions from the committee? Ranking Member Isaacson.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you both for this. There's obviously so much work to do in this space, and we owe parents and kids a better environment. So thank you for bringing it forward. And I think thank you for bringing it forward in the spirit of like, let's all get to the table and kind of figure this out. But can you just speak briefly to how this either improves upon or just differs from the bill that was part of the budget 2 years ago that was ultimately struck down?
Well, this, like you said, the intent to get everybody to the table and let's figure out this for once and for all. You know, not one size fits all. So we have a lot of work to do. This is a moving target, and we think this is just the first step in getting everybody together instead of keep ramming bills down people's throats without covering everything we need to cover.
Follow up.
Just to say, thank you for that effort. I agree that we can get there and looking forward to working on it together.
Any other questions? Representative Timms with a question.
Thank you, Chair. I was just juxtaposing this bill against House Bill 226, introduced by Representative Melody. Miller, and so was looking at the language. Is it the intent here to focus on the responsibility of the actual app developer as opposed to the app store when it comes to age verification? I know that's probably more of a technical, like wonky question, but just curious.
Through the chair to the representative, it's a great question, and it is actually critical in this consideration of this legislation. So the difference between this bill and the bill that you heard previously related to age verification online is that we are proposing the responsibility be a joint responsibility. So the app stores are involved in creating signal language or a signal trigger that would then require the developer to age verify. However, the App Store will create a centralized age verification dashboard where parents only have to go to one location to set their parameters for their children's access to content online and apps as well.
Thank you.
Follow up?
No.
Any other questions from the committee? Seeing none, thanks for testimony. This concludes the first hearing for House Bill 302. I'd now like to call up substitute Senate Bill 56 for its third hearing. This is our first witness. And our first witness is Anthony Riley from Ohio Cannabis Live. Welcome.
Good morning. All right. Good morning, Chairman Thomas, Vice Chair Matthews, Ranking Member Isaacson, and members of the committee. Thank you for allowing me to testify today. I respectfully oppose the SB 56 sub-bill for the following reasons and offer improvements. We must protect our most vulnerable seniors, veterans, cancer patients, and people like me living with serious health conditions. Medical patients should not be taxed. Removing taxes could help bring back thousands who have left our program. Medical patients should be allowed to smoke cannabis. It makes no sense that adult use consumers can smoke, but patients can't. If THC limits are reduced, high potency products should remain available for medical patients. We must stop criminalizing how cannabis is stored in vehicles. No jail time or fines is needed. Products should be stored where kids or pets cannot reach them, like in a sealed or childproof container. Smell alone should not justify a search from law enforcement. Cannabis consumption spaces are long overdue. If Ohio is considering allowing THC beverages to be sold in bars and restaurants, we should also consider designated areas at these venues where adults can legally smoke cannabis. Just like we have bars for alcohol, cannabis consumers need a safe, legal space to consume. I propose that we establish a system of event-based and venue-specific permits that allow smoking or vaping at approved private events or consumption-friendly businesses. Cannabis event rules need clarity. I propose venue-based and annual event permits issued by the Division of Cannabis Control with clear rules will support legal and safe and successful events. Home growers should be permitted to sell seeds and clones at expos, festivals, and markets. Medical patients should be allowed to grow 12 plants per person, not per household. Selling a small number of clones without license should be permitted. Selling more could require a vendor permit. I propose we rename the Social Equity Program to the Cannabis Opportunity Community Program, or COCP. This program should receive 26% of the adult sales revenue to support licensing, access, job creation, expungement, and community reinvestment. COCP could be managed by the Ohio Department of Development. An additional 10% of adult use sales should support public cannabis education, local testing access, and law enforcement retraining on cannabis laws and Division of Cannabis Control policies. I would like to also launch the Cannabis Public Education Program, or CPEP, with the support and funding of the state of Ohio. CPEP would serve cannabis consumers and non-licensed businesses by providing multi-language, multimedia education to close the gap of public understanding about legal cannabis. Public testing should be offered at health departments so residents can test flower, edibles, or concentrates from any source, reducing the stigma and promoting safety. Ohio voters are frustrated. Many people across the state have different understandings of what is legal and what isn't. When it comes to cannabis, because of public information has been inconsistent and laws often feel different depending on what city or county you live in. I urge you to attend town halls this summer to connect with voters. If we don't get this right, we can't keep losing to Michigan in football and cannabis. Thank you for your time today. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have or meet with you at another date.
Great, thank you for your testimony. Are there any questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Our next witness is Simon Dunkel from Ohio Normal. Welcome to committee.
Thank you, Chairman. Take me just a second.
Yeah, no problem.
A little hitch in my get along.
No rush, no problem.
So good morning. Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Simon Dunkel. I'm Executive Director of Ohio Normal. I've also worked here as an employee in 114th General Assembly for Vern Rife, Betty Black, Merle Shoemaker, Morris Tipton. So I've been here before. What I'd like to see, we've attempted on many levels for many years. I started testifying in 2012 to try to make a connection so that we could do something on this subject. Despite efforts of trying to educate legislators, it never seems to come to fruition. I've gotten to the point where I want to ask you, educate me. Why does it have to be like this? Why do we have to do it this way? When we have the knowledge of 38, 39 other states that have done it. And you hear the governor talk about the Ohio way. And right now the Ohio way is nothing but kind of embarrassing because this isn't this difficult. And with the shell game of bills and places to look for relevant information, whether it's budgets or committees or whatever, it's gotten to be a bit ridiculous because it seems like you don't really want anybody to know. And as much as time as you put into getting input, you don't seem to process that input. I approached Senator Mora's office a year or two ago about the medical program and was told that I was Noah's Arking the bill, which of course infers there's a big problem that they do recognize. And I think that, we need to move forward and get past whatever problems you have with cannabis and its users and get to the point of, let's let the state make the money. Let's let everybody in the system make the money, but we need to cover the consumer. Anti-discrimination law, language, criminal justice reform, and social equity are at the top of the list. And frankly, you need to just sort of stop this process and go back to issue 2 and start from there. Because you've been told by the state constituents of the state that that's what they want. And yet you've ignored that and you continue to ignore that. And all you have to do is look at the situation with testimony. You've had insurmountable amounts, I guess, of
There we go, baby.
testimony, 60 or more, and you're adding to that today. Proponent testimony is 10 or 12 or 15. And we seem to exist in a vacuum as opponent testimony speakers, which I'd like to know why that is. Because I've got 50 years working with the plant. I've been trying to get change in Ohio for 15 years, started coming here on this subject in 2012. When you look at things like limiting concentrates to 70%, it takes RSO and FICO basically out of the game for being relevant medications. When it comes to the tax rate and its distribution, that continues to be an issue because the very community that's creating those funds doesn't get any help from those funds. And that needs to be addressed as well. And you also need to allow free and open testing of all products for contamination and quality assurance, because you need to follow like the lead of Maine. They found 120 samples through their program. 42% of them were contaminated. And one of them was with a pesticide that creates cyanide gas when the flower is immolated. So that's a problem. And it's better to know and do something than not know and let something happen. Excuse me. We also need to create like DORAs, the drinking areas in public for special events, create CORAs for marijuana. I mean, you take a small area and basically a small building, glass, plastic, whatever, put a large vent filter on it, and then you've got an area where they can use. and in public. So you can reduce arrests and reduce public consumption, and everybody's happy. But those things need to be considered, because if you give us the product and don't give us the right of use, there's no real sense in having it. And lastly, I'd like to point out, that you're kind of in a precarious situation, because you're about to be known as one of the largest criminal conspiracies against your own constituents and neighbors in U.S. history. You legalized a commodity, gave access to it, then allowed it to be recriminalized, overpriced, highly taxed, while continuing to make arrests for it, all along providing no support, recourse, or real rights of use for citizens of the state. You've surreptitiously taken advantage of federal law while damaging the very consumers you supposedly rescuing from federal law. Please put the process on hold until we can recognize the will of the voters, issue 2, and not the will of the legislators. The opportunity still exists for you to work with cannabis consumers and advocates. Sarah Coy is here from Athens. She was instrumental in the taco effort down there. You've also got EBTHC, Eric's here, Matt from Civics Cannabis. And like I said, I've got 50 years experience. I mean, we can work together. If you can explain to me why it needs to be this way, then I can stop coming and sweating at the podium. Or you guys, or we can explain how this works, why it works, and why I didn't die in 2012 like I was supposed to. So I appreciate it. Anybody has any input or questions? I'm here for
Mr. Dunkel, thank you for your testimony.
Sure.
For the record, the substitute bill, the one we're working on, our latest version is on the Judiciary Committee website.
Mhm.
So it is available there.
Okay.
Are there any questions for Mr. Dunkel? Representative Calendar.
Thank you. As much a comment as a question, I want to thank you for coming in. I'm not going to repeat this for every speaker, but again, thank you all for your participation. As a result of that, there was a substitute bill put in last week that addressed a couple of the issues you talk about. And one of the reasons that it is not up for a vote today is we're still negotiating and working on some amendments to address several of the other issues. So the very specific issues you addressed have been being worked on or will be addressed in the next week or two. So for all of you that are here testifying, I want to thank you. You've made a difference, and it's going to make a much better product. And I'm optimistic that you may not be perfectly happy, but you're going to say, this is okay when it comes up.
Well, I
So
appreciate
thank you for your participation.
Well, I appreciate your
And good to see you again.
And good to see you. Thank you for your support. I appreciate it.
Good day.
Great.
Any other questions?
Any other questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you. And I apologize for not having everything about Sub Bill 56 on my mind, but well, 4 days and hips that just seem to like to go their own way. It gets to be an issue. So thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you. Our next witness is Eric Whitehead.
Yeah. Is Teddy here? Hey, Teddy, the coalition really, the Ohio Cannabis Consumer Coalition really appreciates you. Those pamphlets I was talking about. Those are called zines. It's short for mini magazine. It's a pamphlet with some basic educational content on it. And sorry, let me start over. Chair, members of the committee, thank you all for coming here. Honestly, though, it's a shame that I have to see you all again under these circumstances. But as Calendar has pointed out, when duty calls, this community answers. 40 more testimonies today is pretty impressive if you ask me. I did want to thank many of you here on this committee today. I've been inspired by many of you. Calendar, I know we had a little bit of a heated discussion last time, but you did inspire me. I did bring in some of my own homegrown joints today. Unfortunately, I can't test those because I don't have access to the labs. Some of the labs have actually written to the DCC to test some of my stuff, but they can't do that. We're locked out of that. Maybe you guys have better connections than I do. If you want, I have some doob tubes here. I can put some of these in the empties. You guys can take them, maybe take them to a lab. Let me know what I'm working with. I'm not sure if this is federally compliant, THC 8, Delta 8A. It's tough to know. You guys' language is unclear, and I can't test it. I got him from Jeffrey Goff. He's testified in front of you guys before. I bought him from his licensed company, Yggdrasil Genetics. He's also the man who owns Galena's. I've grown his cannabis outdoors, federally compliant with ORC 3780. Back to my notes here. Sorry, I got a little carried away. So again, calendar, thank you for that. Rep. Odioso took the call of my colleague, Rodney Hash. That's not even his constituent, but he did take the time to speak with him, which I found very inspiring. Everybody over here, Isaacson, Mohammed, Timms, and Sonnenberg. Sonnenberg called me on recess and we spoke for 45 minutes and I educated him about this industry. And when I finished talking for 10 minutes, he didn't tell me I talked too much. He asked follow-up questions. Rep. Thomas, Chair, you've inspired me by your lack of accountability to your constituents. Does the name James Powers mean anything to you?
It does not.
Okay, well, just to inform you, that is one of your constituents. He is a veteran. He's called your office over 10 times to speak about this. He's spoken on the national level about this. He'd like to hear back from you.
Great, I'll do that.
Thank you. Representative Stewart, you've inspired me as well. Your lack of accountability to your own legislation and the inability to answer questions in the public sphere has inspired me. I get really anxious if you can't tell, but I consume a lot of cannabis to make sure that I can speak to you guys fluently and professionally. Otherwise, I'd probably be a little bit more angry because you're coming after my livelihood. Do you understand that? I don't know what you just saw. I handed to Simon Dunkel. Those are my homemade RSO edibles. Those are legal under ORC 3780. I am not using hydrocarbon processing, if that means anything to you. I decided to put my badge on today. I don't normally do that. I'm not here representing King City Gardens, but I do work as a community outreach manager for King City Gardens. A level 1 cultivator in this state located out of Forest Park. If any of you want a tour of a level 1 facility that is using technology that the rest of this industry is not, come check us out. I've spoken about remediation here before. I've asked you guys to have the regulators, the DCC, put labels on the jar. They like to put their DCC logo. I'd like to see a logo on there that says this product has been remediated if we have moldy cannabis that has been sent through a microwave or radiation and sold to the consumers. Why are we hiding that information from them? If you want to see a facility that runs with 25,000 square feet and doesn't use remediation, come check us out. We're working with Grove Bags. They are located out of Cleveland, Ohio. They are a local company and they are now being used nationwide for their technology. If you want to see a processor, I have connections at Canis and Jimmy Gould, who worked with many of you guys back when this program first started. We're working with his company, Canis, and they are processing some of our products. I have seen the very people working there. They have some of the smartest, I don't know if the name Daxtraction Labs means anything to you. He is an Ohio-made cannabis processor. He has now been hired by Canis, and he is now working there. He can teach you more about processing than anybody in this room can. It's clear to those paying attention that the community intends to move rapidly. Whether it's combining these dates, moving these things, it's great to hear that we're making an impact, but we'd like to start the conversation over. One of my favorite books by Pierce Brown, Red Rising, talks about changing the bloody damn paradigm, and that's what I'm here to do today. That pamphlet I gave out has got a lot of educational content on there. I'm happy to share more. My website is on there as well. That's how many people have figured out how to speak with you all. I don't know if you guys are close with your colleague, Representative Kelly Dieter, but I was in Delphos yesterday talking to one of her constituents, general manager at a dispensary out there. Her community is mad at her because she's withholding the money from them. Do you know how crazy that is? I talked to somebody in that store. I have IBS, so I have to go to the bathroom at least 10 times a day sometimes. Yesterday, a woman in a dispensary gave me a fist bump because of that, because cannabis helps us both with that. Another person there talked to me. I talked to them about my suicidal ideation and how cannabis terpenes such as osamine helped me fight those thoughts, and he almost cried when I shared that with him. How do you look at your colleague Kelly Dieter and tell her that that community leader that has hired those people and helped them, that she's withholding the money? How do you sleep at night? Withholding the money from those communities, it's not for the cost of what happened there, it's rewarding the communities for being forward thinking. You're gonna hear from many colleagues today from the Cannabis Consumer Coalition, a lot more issues that I don't have time to address today, but I came here to offer you a new paradigm, and many of the people here are gonna speak with you. I have to thank you all.
Thank you for your time. I'm sorry, thank you for testimony. Are there any questions for the witness?
Is my time up?
Your time's up, yes.
Okay.
Representative Sonnenberg, a question.
Yeah, just more of a comment. Just want to, Eric, through the chair, Mr. White, thanks for your testimony and for this information. And again, we have spoken, and I appreciate your trying to educate us. And to echo Rep. Callender's earlier comments, you know, we're definitely working on trying to get some of the stuff that you've explained to us and some of your concerns addressed with this legislation. So thanks again for your time.
Thank you. Through the chair to the rep, I'm looking forward to lunch next week.
Any other questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Our next witness is Daniel Del Signore from the Ohio Cannabis Consumer Coalition.
Alrighty. Oh, sorry about that. I'm having a little trouble with the microphone here. Alrighty. Chair, members of the committee, thank you for having me today. My name is Daniel Del Signore Jr., and I'm here today to speak in opposition to Senate Bill 56. As a medical cannabis patient and responsible cannabis consumer in the state of Ohio, I want to be clear. Senate Bill 56 fails to honor the will of the people, the very voters who passed Issue 2 into law in November of 2023. Let's remember what happened in November of 2023. Over 57% of Ohioans voted in favor of cannabis legalization. That's more than voted for Governor DeWine. That's not just a win, it's a landslide, and that means something. That means the people of Ohio spoke clearly and decisively. They want legal access, they want social equity, and they want responsible tax revenue distribution. Under the law passed by the people, 36% of cannabis tax revenue is to be distributed to communities, including 15% directly to cities and municipalities that allow legal cannabis sales in their jurisdiction. Senate Bill 56 threatens to undercut that promise. Why should cities that support legalization and bear the responsibility of regulation be denied their fair share? This isn't about partisanship. This isn't even about cannabis at its core. This is about democracy. It's about whether elected officials will listen to the will of the constituents that they serve. As a patient, I use cannabis daily to manage mental health conditions safely and effectively. I use cannabis as harm reduction. Cannabis has effectively saved my life from benzodiazepines. Make no mistake, I am alive today because of cannabis. Why are you trying to take our medicine away and recriminalize us for a non-toxic substance, claiming it's to protect the children when we have Sunny D vodka seltzers, Welch's grape juice alcoholic beverages, Not Your Father's root beer, and orange cream soda, all of which are attractive to children and very lethal? Alcohol kills 3 million individuals worldwide. Additionally, according to Dr. Keith Humphreys in the American Academy of Clinical Toxicology, no child has ever died from an accidental cannabis ingestion. With this information, why aren't we cracking down on that alcohol as opposed to a substance which has had 50,000 peer-reviewed studies completed on it, and we still cannot find an LD50, meaning lethal dose? Where are the priorities? Is it really protecting the children or making more money off of your constituents in an unfair way and using ignorance to do it? I am not a criminal. We are not criminals. I'm an Ohioan. We are all Ohioans. And I stand here today because I believe that the law that voters pass must be respected in the way it was passed, not rewritten to fit someone else's agenda to reflect weaker medicine because some in Ohio Senate are still uneducated when it comes to cannabis. I urge you to please reject Senate Bill 56 and please listen to your constituents, including myself, when we call. Please respect democracy and uphold issue 2. Thank you for having me today and hearing my testimony. I am willing to answer any questions that anyone may have.
Thank you for your testimony.
Just had to get the lab mic back. All right. Chair, Vice Chair, Ranking Member, and members of this committee. I would like to thank you today for the opportunity to speak in opposition of SB 56. Despite the recent amendments, it still undermines much of what Ohio voters overwhelmingly passed on issue 2. My name is Rodney Hennessy, but most people in the cannabis space know me as Rodney Hash. I've worked in every part of the cannabis industry, from cultivation and extraction to retail and education, and I currently help lead the Ohio Cannabis Consumer Coalition. We represent a diverse group of Ohioans from across the political spectrum, and as you see today, we come in numbers. This is not a partisan issue, and again, we asked for more progress, not more prohibition. We're supposed to go forwards, not backwards. A lot of the things, including within the amendments, go back on the decrim law that we passed 10 years ago. SB 56 contains several concerning provisions. Most notably, it continues to favor the current existing operators, giving them more grow space, going from 25,000 square foot for level 1 operators to 100. You're not allowing the small scale operators and you're shutting them out. There's no new operators still. One of the many promises of issue 2 was equity. That means giving the little guy a chance. If you really are concerned about fighting the illegal market, make it to where you don't have to be a millionaire to be able to go through the legal avenue. Give them a shot. Let them be legal. Let them pay taxes. That's what the founders would have wanted. The founders of this very country grew hemp. The first bill ever passed on this ground in America required farmers to grow it because it was such a big cash crop. I know our textbooks say that tobacco was the biggest cash crop, but that's a lie. It was hemp. Hemp is cannabis, not just the textile. In Washington's diary, he said that he went through and killed off his males late and he was upset about it. Why do you think he would be upset about it? Because then he has seeds in his end product. Because he's looking to grow the flower to smoke it and consume it. Jefferson almost caused an international incident procuring seeds from China. Like, he almost caused an international incident as this country was being founded. That's how important to him it was. This bill creates many new unnecessary new crimes, including the sub-bill, such as if you're hitting a vape pen as a passenger in a car or you're being Ubered, now you're being labeled a criminal and putting the driver at risk. We asked, as voters, to normalize and regulate responsibly, not irresponsibly. Additionally, combining the med and rec programs without separate testing, without separate standards, not giving any patients protections or rights, it's hurting them. It's hurting a lot of people, specifically patients. And as a doctor, I would hope we would expect better. They deserve better. The hemp program, the rec program, and the med program should all be under the Department of Agriculture. Maybe we should stop with the agricultural prejudice. Finally, limiting the number of dispensaries just makes absolutely no sense at all. I'm from Cleveland. We just, for the first time in my lifetime, seen a reduction in opioid deaths. And that matters a lot to me. A large number of my graduating class from 2014 is no longer with us due to opioids. AA in Canada supports using cannabis to get off of alcohol and opioids. I'm sure a lot of people in this room didn't even know that. That's been going on since I was in high school. This is not correlation. This is causation. We've seen a reduction in opioid deaths in every state that has legalized both medical and recreational marijuana. That's proven. It's state after state after state, and now in our great state of Ohio. And I would like to see that continue. More access, not less access. That's the answer for that. This is just a few of my many, many concerns about SB 56, including the amendments. It's better than it was, but it's not enough. I recommend you guys restart from scratch. None of what's in there is good. You have dozens of people in this room that would love to give you feedback, and I would love to help educate you rationally. I appreciate your time. I open the floor for dialogue. I also have a podcast. If anyone would like to have an open, respectful dialogue about this, I encourage everyone. My podcast is Rodney Hash. Google me, you'll find it. I thank you for your time and attention on this issue, especially Representative Callender, Representative Odioso, Representative Mohammed, Representative Isaacson, Representative Timms, and Representative Seinenberg, all of which have been very receptive to us and working with all of us in this coalition. So I thank you guys very much so.
Mr. Hennessy, thank you for your testimony. Are there any questions for the witness? Ranking Member Isaacson.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for being here. And I just want to take the opportunity to thank all of the advocates for your sustained passion for this issue, for speaking up, and especially for really framing it in your testimony in sort of personal terms and why you're here advocating for something that is so important to you and your community. I think it would just be helpful to get a sense from you of where you think either what you're most concerned about, like if you had to triage, or where you think the most ripe opportunity for progress is.
I think the most opportunity for progress is opening up the market. I think the biggest thing is not like we increased the cap from 350 to 400 with the amendment, which is good. But as I said, the more access that we have, the less opioid deaths we have. And maybe that's not even just dispensaries. Maybe that's farmers markets where we could, again, tax them, regulate it. And there's Vehicle City Social and Clio Cultivation up in Michigan to give you guys examples of legal ways to do this. And I've personally seen farmers work with like old ladies that they've got a tab with them that they've forgiven tons of debt so that way they can have their medicine because it's important to people.
Follow up? Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you. I appreciate everyone.
Our next witness is Elliot Durant from the Consumer Coalition. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. To the chairman, vice chairman, and all members of the committee. Oh, sorry. So let me start over. So chairman, vice chairman, and all members of the committee, thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak before you today. As you've probably heard from everyone, most of our speeches involve education. And in my opinion, this is one thing that we all lack here in one way or another. Between the consumers, the patients, politicians, the industry, there's a lack of education. And that's the one thing I think that can really bring us together. So with that being said, my name is Elliot Durant. I am a member of the Ohio Cannabis Consumer Coalition, but today I come to you as just a passionate advocate for a plant that has saved many lives. Cannabis has been a big part of my life for 26 years now. I am 38. You do the math there. Now, that may not be something you want to hear, but it is a reality, especially when growing up in the inner city on the east side of Cleveland as a young minority where we're not educated about cannabis at all. Cannabis has been a big part of my life in many ways, from using to growing to being a part of the community to representing the culture, and for the last 6 years, being in the Ohio legal cannabis industry. I strongly oppose Senate Bill 56, not out of disregard for rule of law, but out of deep concern for the democratic process and for the will of the people. The voters of the state made their voices clear. When they passed issue 2. They did not vote for half measures or hidden rollbacks. They voted for a future where cannabis policies reflect fairness, common sense, and forward progress, not outdated stigmas or punitive overreach. Senate Bill 56 disregards that mandate. Rather than honoring the voter-approved framework, this bill pivots towards criminalization, targeting individuals who share cannabis with one another. If our goal is to promote public safety and public health, then we must educate, not incarcerate. I want to say that just one more time. We must educate, not incarcerate. There's a glaring lack of comprehensive cannabis education in Ohio, just like it was when I started when I was 12. Whether it's law enforcement, politicians, medical professionals, or even the public, there is a need for cannabis education. Instead of investing in education and harm reduction, this bill doubles down on punitive measures. That is not progress, that is regression. We must also acknowledge a broader truth. Cannabis policy has for far too long been weaponized disproportionately against marginalized communities. Senate Bill 56 risks repeating those injustices under the guise of regulation. Respectfully, I urge this body to pause and consider whether this legislation reflects the will of voters or simply the will to control a movement they do not understand or have not been educated on. Ohioans voted for legalization, but this is recriminalization in disguise. Do not betray those who place trust in you, yet lead with compassion, with fairness, respect, and most importantly, education. Before I finish, I know you guys like to ask questions, but I do have a question for you guys. Have any of you ever been into an Ohio metric dispensary?
So I will let them answer that if they wish. Are there any questions for the witness? Representative Mohammed with a question.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Duran, for your testimony. I just wanted to say thank you for coming. I think I was echoed with Rep. Sennenberg and Rep. Callender as well. I was at the Cannabis Town Hall a couple of weeks ago, and I've had a chance to see a lot of you. So again, thank you for what you're doing. It makes a difference. We're making good progress. I want to give a special recognition to Ranking Member Isaacson for his effort as well, really in making sure that we're putting a good step forward and that we're making some progress, especially in some of the criminalization parts of the bill. So again, thank you again.
Any other questions for the witness? Representative Callender with a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With permission, I'd like to answer the question that was asked by the witness. I can tell you that yes, I have been to fairly public in my visits to some of the dispensaries, but I've taken a number of members, both on this committee and general members, and I know there's some folks in the audience that are part of the industry. And I want to compliment my colleagues, even those who are not real enthusiastic about the industry, for taking the time to visit grow sites, dispensaries, processors, and testing labs. And I've personally been on visits to each of those with multiple members of the General Assembly. So for those who don't want to say yes or no, I will tell you that I would guess a majority of members have taken the time to visit and get educated. And it's helped us as this bill has moved forward. So I'm sure those in the industry would re-invite folks to come again to tour their facilities. And I think it is eye-opening when you do. And I think most of the members that visit come away saying, my gosh, this is like going into a lab. This is so professional and so well done and so regulated and controlled. It gives a lot of comfort to the members. But thank you for asking the question.
There is a reason why I asked that question. Sorry. The reason why I asked that question is because we talk a lot about protecting the kids. And I worked in the dispensary for almost 4 years. And just to go over for those who aren't aware, when you first walk in, your ID is checked immediately. From there, you go into a lobby where you sit. From there, your name is called. From there, you go to the back where your ID is checked once again. So we're focusing on protecting the kids in a situation where kids can't even make it past the front door. Meanwhile, they can go to a Shell gas station, run to the back of the cooler, throw a 40 under their shirt and walk out. But that's why I was asking. Thank you very much for your time.
Great, thank you for your testimony. Our next witness is Michael Smith from the Cannabis Consumer Coalition.
Chair Thomas, Ranking Member Isaacson, and members of the House Judiciary Committee, thank you for allowing me to testify today. My name is Mike Smith, lifelong Ohio resident, growing up in Northwest Ohio farm country, and I'm a technology leader here in Columbus. I'm also a medical cannabis patient and a home grower of some of the tastiest terps you'll come across. Senate Bill 56 is at best legislative overreach and at worst just corruption. Both the House and the Senate have introduced bills that no one's asked for that implement punitive and retaliatory measures against 57% of the voters who passed issue 2. It's punitive because Republicans didn't want it, the governor didn't want it, and lobbying groups didn't want it, so now you're punishing the voters for passing it. You asked for testimony, but you never asked for meaningful dialogue on what it would enhance and improve issue 2. Discussing positive change cannot be done in 3-minute time chunks. The legislative body exists to amend and repeal laws that benefit the state and the people you represent. This bill directly circumvents our democratic process by going against the will of the voters. Everyone here will speak to various portions of this bill, but I feel it's imperative to talk about what everybody loves most. Let's talk about money. This bill will spell an economic disaster for Ohio in years to come. The craft cannabis industry is vital to ensuring cannabis industry grows and creates jobs. Tier 3 and craft growers are the real job creators. This bill eliminates that opportunity. Home grow and craft cannabis are also medical necessities for patients. The MSOs do not care about growing the best cannabis, they care about profit. Craft cannabis cares more about people to ensure a healthy grow, hand trimming, proper drying, not automated processes and remediating your products because it's cheaper to grow poorly and zap it with radiation than it is to do the job right.
I'm right here watching, man.
The economic impact of recriminalizing cannabis and restrictions being imposed to consumers will have impacts beyond the cannabis industry. I'm a technologist here in Columbus. Ohio is known as the tech capital of the Midwest. We have 400,000 jobs in technology here. 60% of technologists admitted in the national survey to using medical or recreational cannabis. That comes to $18 billion annually brought into the state of Ohio through income from cannabis-using technologists.
Going, bro.
The medical portion of
Open the
Ohio's
market
cannabis industry brought in
Like, we gotta open
$2.36
the
million since
market
its
up. The
inception.
market's not even
So you're
open right now.
attacking $18 billion worth of income just for what? For pennies? It's really like, you know, the cannabis industry is rookie numbers compared to the incomes you're attacking from 60% of the voters of the state. Finding and retaining top talent is critical to ensuring Ohio remains competitive. I deal with this issue every day, but now they can go to Michigan and work as a booming technology industry, and they'll protect them, not go against the will of the voters. Ohio breeds greatness. It's home to Edison, the Wright brothers, John Glenn. The OSU agricultural department is continually revolutionizing growing. Grove bags revolutionized cannabis curing technology. With the exception of Grove, I sat at OCHBS where Representative Callender was also in attendance, and I get to hear about technology, robotics, and farming innovations from Michigan, not Ohio. I foresee a major boom in innovation in the cannabis industry, but we're going to miss out on that because you're recriminalizing this. We should be leading this as Ohio. That's what we do. The short-sighted decisions by legislators are risking billions to the Ohio economy just to line the pockets of MSO and lobbying groups. On 4/30/2025, Senator Huffman, the sponsor of SB 56, at the 20-minute mark of the recording said cannabis should be deregulated once the return on equity to the large price and the risk of the cultivators and the people in the process gets their money. He supports deregulation as long as everyone gets paid. He's a medical professional who's willing to cause harm to medical patients, harm to veterans, harm to underrepresented communities, and harm to the voters of the state so the MSO, venture capitalists, and founders of OCAN can get rich at the expense of Ohioans. SB 56 is corrupt, it's a waste of taxpayer money, and it's a job killer. It's bad for Ohio, bad for its citizens, bad for innovation. I've only got 55 seconds left, so improvements, what we should be talking about are plant count. That's a whole conversation that's gonna take longer than a couple seconds. Better anti-discrimination policies for employees. Craft cannabis tier 3, lower barrier to entry, or even a co-op model, micro licensing.
Come on,
Cultivators
bro.
should be able to grow outdoors. All license applicants should be a minimum of 10 years living in Ohio to be able to call themselves an Ohio business and not move in from Michigan or Oklahoma and say, no, I'm an Ohioan and I'm an Ohio business. And then education. You know, we're going to see someone come up and talk about poison control because ER visits have increased. That's true because people aren't educated and they accidentally take too many edibles, but no one's ever died from cannabis. They just have a really rough 4 hours. Thank you for allowing me to testify today. Does anyone have any questions?
Mr. Smith, thank you for your testimony. Are there any
They
questions? for the
on
witness?
camera now. So, you know, when you see the corruption on camera,
None? Thank you for your testimony.
people get fed up.
Our next witness is Kyle
we do
Coates.
Shout out to the Ohio Cannabis Consumer Coalition.
Welcome.
Make sure y'all subscribe. Make sure y'all like, comment, subscribe too. Let me know your thoughts.
Chair Thomas, Vice Chair Swearingen, Ranking Member Isaacson, and members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to provide opponent testimony on substitute Senate Bill 56. My name is Kyle Coates, and I'm a member of Ohio Cannabis Consumer Coalition, and I'm here today to provide testimony not only on my behalf, but with the coalition as well. You will have or will have heard several arguments against sub SB 56 from my fellow coalition members, and I hope from multiple angles for maximum understanding of our position on the subject. I'll try to utilize the time given to me to highlight some things that are important to me, possibly some different angles. I'm a father of young children. Right now, a few of them are old enough to understand political motions, and it's become harder and harder to navigate conversations with them about the subject because politics can be so tricky to begin with. I want my children to understand how to be active members of the community while trying to truly make an impact, and they're not kept in the dark on many subjects. They say what comes to mind, and they're always quick to notice when something isn't right. Well, how do I defend legislative process when it's failing to perform as designed? It becomes much harder to foster their concept of democracy for their future when it is apparent that the fight to retain democracy is alive and real in present times. It's been stated that Ohioans may not have really known what they initially voted for with issue 2, but one thing that's been made clear by many Ohioans thus far by my observation is that we did in fact know well what we voted for. Senate Bill 56, substitute Senate Bill 56, or any other bill containing language inherently opposite of the language passed within issue 2 is blatantly pushing against the will of the majority. It is concerning that someone finds it necessary to further regulate what is already strictly regulated enough. The current rules and regulations are what were passed with issue 2, and any further modifications should be considered by the people when or if they find it necessary.
I've been using cannabis for relief for the entirety of the time that I've used it. For 25 years, I've self-medicated using cannabis for physical, mental, and spiritual relief. I'm fortunate for the path that has led me to be able to use cannabis as medicine, and I wish that ability for everyone that desires it. I've been an Ohio medical cannabis patient for 6 years, but I've let my registration lapse due to current circumstances, and I'm not too sure how I feel about going back to have to jump through more hoops and pay to be in a system when it's deemed that it is in fact medicine that I'm procuring, and anybody without a medical card can get the same thing with less hoops, just more tax dollars. Shouldn't patients come first when they're the real backbone of the medical program, and without them, there would be no need for a medical program to begin with? And it would be amazing to be able to find a way to facilitate a real caregiver system within Ohio's medical program, something that only patients had access to, that also gave independent growers and other patients the ability to enter into the conversation while fostering a cleaner, more accountable environment as a whole. Ultimately, it appears that the real issue is, in most cases, the money and how to spend the money. And any and all tax monies generated from businesses done by licensed operators of any kind should be efficiently used for impactful enrichment of the community where the business is done. There should be zero caps on time the revenue is allotted to municipalities, as they will always need extra funds from all feasible sources. I completely disagree with the universal marijuana permit, as it appears to be another arbitrary list and fee-fine generation tool, and it just adds more items to an already large bill. Any legal age person should be able to trade, gift, and share cannabis. All legal age Ohioans should be able to register for licensing for cultivation, processing, and/or distribution if they desire or have the capacity to do so. The apparent merging of SB 56 and language from SB 86 is a large area of concern, as its rushed introduction appears to indicate a general lack of forethought on both. If intoxicating hemp is the real issue, shift the focus to natural versus synthetic. Focus on the use of natural Ohio-grown hemp. Foster legalization of cannabis and hemp altogether. Foster Ohio agriculture by way of hemp. The reality is we should be focusing on discussing decriminalization instead of legalization of cannabis and hemp altogether, for the plain fact that we can all gather to discuss nuances to topics that were completely off the table less than a decade ago. We should soon recognize the absurdity of the demonization and over-regulation of a plant that provides relief for many forms and for a multitude of people. Although there have been obvious compromises made within the original bill language, I'll say it again, any language against the language passed within issue 2 is against the will of the majority of Ohio. I appreciate your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Coates, thank you for your testimony. Are there any questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Our next witness is Madison Millard from the Consumer Coalition. Is Madison Millard here? No. All right. Peter LaFontaine. Peter LaFontaine. Not seeing Peter. Is Irvin Leibson here? Mr. Leibson, welcome to committee.
How are you?
Well, please proceed when you're ready.
Yes, sir. By the way, I talked to Teddy Smith. We were trying to make sure that my associate Alan Mooney was going to get 5 minutes, and he didn't get back. Could you give him 5 after me, please? I came from Loveland, and he's here with me, Mr. Mooney. Would that be okay with you? Thank you for your kindness, sir. Thank you all for allowing me to speak. Usually I'd start out with a joke, but I'm on strike and I'm not going to be funny today. So sorry. Anyway, I've been working with Governor DeWine. I have the letters with me from him. I know his concerns and his concerns for children, which are some of my concerns as well. And we've been writing back and forth. I'm very concerned about children, about driving safety, about incarceration and recriminalization. I just ask you all, would you just think this through? Think it through. Think about what we're going to do. Think about the cost of what this is going to cost. Think about our great police. I'm a big friend of our police. And I'll tell you one thing, all the police I talk to are so glad they can go after crime instead of people on cannabis. And another thing too is they have problems when they go home, spousal abuse. A lot of police would prefer to use cannabis instead of alcohol. I know this also. I was a Playboy bartender and took care of a lot of police, and I know about some of these stories that they tell me. So it's worth considering, most respectfully. My friend Mike DeWine, he talks about potency all the time. And this is where him and I have a big disagreement. He thinks it's back from, it's not like the 60s and today is so much stronger. Well, I sort of remember Panama Red, Acapulco Gold, and things like that, a lot stronger than what is today. So one of the things that I talked to Mike about is moderation. Why are we not talking about moderation? You know how you moderate? You use stronger, higher potency cannabis and use less. Stay healthy. So it's a different way of thinking, but worth considering. Another thing, children. I care about children. One of the things I talked about with Mike is about having a, what do you call, a gun safe that you put your finger on, biometric, excuse me, sir, biometric. So if you could have a portable biometric gun safe, small one, you can take it wherever you go and your children cannot have access to your cannabis or also the drugs you take too. Driving, I have a big concern about that. And Mike and I talk about that. Here's an answer. Let the police give out CBD. CBD, if you gave, and the police came and say, look, things are changing. We'd like to give you some CBD so you could vape on your drive. It's non-psychoactive. And we encourage you, if you're at work, at school, if you're using farm equipment, use CBD. You're gonna take a drive. Don't use cannabis. Don't use alcohol or drugs. Incarceration. Please think this through. Please think it through. This gentleman said had gone to a dispensary and he was talking about one of the dispensaries. I don't know about what you're seeing, but 50% of the people I see are seniors. They're disabled people like me. And I've been an advocate for disabled, by the way, since 1998. I've served hundreds and hundreds of disabled and seniors. When I go to the dispensary, first thing I see is seniors. So, okay, so do we want the police to go and lock up our seniors? Do we want them to go pick up the disabled people and haul them to jail for cannabis? Are you know what I was going to say. Anyway, so I just like to wrap up with that. Let our police do their job. They're great people. Let them do their job and let them work on crime and not on cannabis. And let the free market work. And instead of raising taxes and telling people they can't go to other states, let's compete. Let's compete. So I want to thank you all for the time you've given me. I came up from Loveland, stage 4 kidney disease, to be here today. And I'm honored to speak to you. I'm very good on policy. If anybody would like to work with me, I could stay over a few days. I'm at the Holiday Inn here at the State House. If you need me, please give me a call. Irvin Leifson, thank you for your time. If you have any questions.
Sir, thank you for your testimony. Are there any questions for the witness? Ranking Member Isaacson with a question.
Thank you, Mr. Leibson, and thank you for your advocacy and for coming up from my neck of the woods.
Yes, sir.
Even with everything you have going on. What is, what's giving you hope in this space these days?
Well, I mean, I love our police and I talk to them all the time. And one of the things they were so happy about is they can go after the criminal. The criminal, not the state people in Ohio that a landslide victory, I think it was 57% of Ohioans decided for legalization. Do you want to recriminalize? Do you want to start sending our disabled and our seniors? Picture that for a second. Just picture getting those seniors. Oh, let's put them in jail. And then think about the cost. Think about the cost and lining police at the borders of the state to prevent people from going over to Michigan instead of competing and let the free market work. That's how I feel. Does that answer you? Anybody else, sir?
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony.
Thanks for your kindness, sir.
Sure, thank you.
Alan, you want to come up?
Alan Mooney, please, welcome.
Chairman, Vice Chairman, Committee, thank you for the moment. I'm Sir Alan Mooney. I got the Sir by being knighted by the Catholic Pope, considered the highest honor in the world. I'm also a state and federally licensed registered investment advisor, the largest in Ohio, with about $16 billion under management. As you might imagine, money is an issue always with me. I represented the Ohio epileptic families and been up here many times and have testified for the legalization of marijuana. I negotiated privately with what was then Attorney General Mike Devine and Betty Montgomery, extraordinary group of people. What we do have is a half measure for sure, depending on whether you're for or against it. I'll just make mine very simple. I think in terms of dollars. We're driving billions of dollars of business other places right now, particularly to our sister state, Michigan, which just irks the heck out of me, as Woody would say.
Pennsylvania, come on, bro.
More importantly, I have
what are y'all
legislation I'd like to be introducing for a constitutional amendment to legalize cannabis like a tomato. Children from cradle to grave, in my opinion, should be allowed to use it. I'd rather much see them using cannabis or some derivative of cannabis than all the pills they give them for their attention deficit disorder and everything else. You've heard plenty of testimony on
what Ohio's about,
the dangers of marijuana and on the positive sides of marijuana. I won't go into that. I will tell you that there are people right now very interested in changing Ohio to a total legal state. You could motivate them by changing the people's will. The people are represented here don't even begin to reflect. We had 500,000 more votes than Mike did at the last election. We can now muster 1 million more. Once home grow was allowed, 500,000 people last year in the state of Ohio grew. You got to think about that. We've got 1 million more votes than what Mike got at the election we can bring forth. So as you're contemplating this and driving business up to Michigan and back into the underground,
I told him not to
why
fuck
don't we
with your
capitalizing on it and making it totally legal? Those are my words. Thank you very much. I'll answer any questions or be glad to stick around.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions for the witness?
Sheesh.
Seeing
Cut.
none, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Barbecue chicken.
Our next witness is Matthew Hyde.
Let's go, Matt. Civics Cannabis, Ohio Cannabis Consumer Coalition.
Welcome, Mr. Hyde.
How long do I have?
5 minutes.
5, okay, perfect. All right, Chair Thomas, Vice Chair Swearingen, Ranking Member Isaacson, and members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to testify today. My name is Matthew Hyde, representing Civics Cannabis and the Cannabis Consumers Coalition, and I rise in respectful opposition to Senate Bill 56. While we all share a responsibility to ensure the safe, equitable implementation of cannabis reform, Sub-Bill SB 56 undermines that goal by disregarding the very public will be expressed of issue two and replacing it with fragmented and a punitive approach. Instead of building the foundation Ohio voters supported, this bill interjects confusion, restricts access, and adds criminal penalties that do little to advance public health or safety. Firstly, education must remain a cornerstone of our cannabis framework. Yet this bill repeals funding and mechanisms that would support public awareness, youth prevention, impaired driving reduction, and expungement assistance. Without proper education and outreach, we risk substituting progress with confusion and harm. Education, not fear or overregulation, is how we promote responsible cannabis use. Legalization is not a finish line, it's a responsibility. Rather than empowering citizens with knowledge, SB 56 reverts to outdated enforcement tactics. Second, this process requires cooperation. I appreciate and thank the members of the committee that have reached out to us, but cannabis policy should be shaped by inclusive dialogue with patients, consumers, cannabis industry members, public health experts, and local leaders. However, this latest substitute version still goes backwards, eliminating pathways for new licenses, increasing penalties, and adding layers of restriction without the stakeholder input in this process deserves. It strips local control while offering little in return to communities on the front lines of reform and reinvestment. That is not cooperation, that is exclusion. Lastly, coordination is essential. Ohio has the chance to set a national standard model that merges regulatory oversight with economic inclusion, health safeguards, and personal freedom. It's possible. But that requires all voices at the table: patients, caregivers, veterans, small businesses, farmers, and communities most impacted by the war on cannabis. One that integrates adult use and medical cannabis systems, supports small business, and maintains clear, fair regulations. But this bill creates unnecessary complexity, dual standards, and inconsistent oversight that makes coordination difficult across agencies, providers, and jurisdictions. Sub SB 56 closes doors where it should actually open them. So we do not need to begin from scratch, even though we may have said earlier that we did, but because we already have an outline. It's called Issue 2. So we need to work together, educate properly, cooperate together, and then coordinate a proper framework that the voters voted in. So SB 56, of course, does not achieve that. So I urge this committee to reject the bill in its form and recommend it to a process that reflects the voter-approved Issue 2. Thanks.
Mr. Hyde, thank you for your testimony. Are there any questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Our next witness is Kat Packer from the Drug Policy Alliance. Welcome to committee.
Thank you, Chair and committee members. My name is Kat Packer. I'm the Director of Drug Markets and Legal Regulation for the Drug Policy Alliance. I wear a number of different hats in the space. I also serve as a cannabis policy practitioner in residence at Ohio State University's Drug Enforcement and Policy Center, and have served as a government official, the first person of color in the nation to run a medical and adult use cannabis program, served as the executive director of the City of LA's Department of Cannabis Regulation. But Ohio is home, and I'm concerned about what's happening at home for a number of different reasons, but primarily because it seems as if the legislature is content on disregarding the will of Ohio voters, and doing so in three primary ways. One, by kind of just fundamentally disregarding what legalization means. My recommendation to this body and the legislature is to eliminate any new criminal penalties that have been established by these bills. Every single new criminal penalty needs to be struck out. Otherwise, we don't actually understand what legalization means. The other piece that I want to raise for folks, I'm concerned about how haphazardly we seem to be willing to eliminate the Cannabis Social Equity and Jobs Program. Now, I know that some folks may experience some isms, and so maybe they have some concern with the word equity. But as Anthony Riley had said, it's about community and opportunity. And I really don't understand how this body could be opposed to opportunity and community. And so if it's the word equity that concerns you, please, by all means, rename the program. But please do not abandon Ohioans and Ohio communities, because that is what will happen if we abandon this program. The Cannabis Social Equity and Jobs Fund and program is not just about economic opportunity for small businesses, but that is important. We should be creating opportunities for small and minority businesses. It's not just minority businesses that were to be provided a pathway towards inclusion through this program, but veterans and persons with disabilities. You all would be disregarding those folks as well. And again, it's the Cannabis Social Equity and Jobs Program goes beyond jobs and employment opportunity. Issue 2 was supposed to provide hundreds of millions of dollars to community for criminal justice reform, expungement, bail, parole, legal aid, community-based initiatives like youth development, education, and violence prevention, substance abuse education prevention. Where's the money? Where is it? It's ours. It belongs to Ohio communities. And like the J.G. Wentworth commercial, it's our money and we need it now. We want all of the cannabis tax revenue. We want it delivered to communities, not just for 7 years. We want it delivered into perpetuity. This is important because the Social Equity and Jobs Program and Fund wasn't just some offshoot of issue 2, it was foundational. There were only 4 express purposes in issue 2. 2 of them were providing key funding to support social equity, job creation, host communities, cannabis research and proper oversight, and improving social equity outcomes to address past and present effects of discrimination and economic disadvantage. Half of the whole purpose of issue 2 is about opportunity and community. And so long as this bill hasn't passed, you all still have an opportunity to deliver for community. Rep. Callender, I understand that you said folks are working on this and we'll get it to a point where it'll be okay. I hope so. I really do. But if we move forward with an elimination of funding for programs that are supposed to serve all Ohioans, we will be doing Ohioans a disservice, and we will be back to hold you all accountable. And I don't want to have to keep coming back here for these reasons. We should be working together. We can work together. Jurisdictions have done this work. Ohio, it's your time to get it together. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Are there any questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Our next witness is Bevan Schneck from the Ohio Municipal League. Welcome.
Thank you. Chair Thomas, Vice Chair Swearingen, Ranking Member Isaacson, and members of the Ohio House Judiciary Committee. My name is Bevan Schneck, and I'm the Public Affairs Director at the Ohio Municipal League. On behalf of the Municipal League, I appreciate the opportunity to provide this interested party testimony regarding Substitute Senate Bill 56, which makes a variety of changes to the state's recreational marijuana law. The Ohio Municipal League represents more than 730 cities and villages. The services provided by Ohio's municipalities are beneficial for their businesses and residents, including in the area of public safety, which uses up the vast majority of our members' revenues. I want to begin by expressing our appreciation for the sub-bill's creation of the Host Community Cannabis Fund. This mechanism ensures that local governments hosting licensed cannabis dispensaries will receive a share of the state's excise tax revenue, recognizing the important role these communities play in safely and responsibly regulating cannabis businesses. However, I would like to emphasize several important points regarding the implementation of the Host Community Cannabis Fund. First, it is essential that the funds already collected by the state through the current 10% excise tax on adult use marijuana are made available for distribution to host communities through this fund. These revenues were generated under the legal framework approved by Ohio voters in 2023, and the communities that have hosted dispensaries during this time should have access to these funds to support public safety, health, and other local services. We ask that this committee ensures that past collections can be distributed. Second, the legislature should honor the will of the voters by maintaining the percentage of the excise tax revenue that is allocated to local governments with dispensaries at 36% of the overall 10% excise tax. This percentage was part of the voter-approved framework in 2023, and it reflects a commitment to ensuring that local governments have the resources they need to address the impacts of cannabis legalization. Moreover, we urge the legislature to remove any sunset provisions currently included in the Host Community Cannabis Fund or similar distributions. The voter-approved framework established a permanent ongoing source of funding for communities that have chosen to host dispensaries, and this funding is essential for offsetting the costs of police, fire, emergency medical, and other municipal services that may experience increased demands. Many municipalities made the decision to allow dispensaries in their communities with the understanding that this revenue would be a sustained source of support. Any changes to this percentage or its duration would be a departure from the commitment made to these communities and could erode the trust between the state and local governments as well as with voters. In conclusion, we appreciate the steps taken in Substitute Senate Bill 56 to create a path for distributing these funds. However, we ask that you ensure the funds already collected are included in these distributions, that the percentage remains at 36% of the overall 10% tax, and that the distributions are made permanent, as was the clear intent of the voters. On behalf of the members of the Ohio Municipal League, thank you for your consideration of these requests and the opportunity to share our position on Senate Bill 56. And with that, I can take any questions.
Thank you for your testimony. Are there any questions for the witness? Representative Sonnenberger's question.
So some of the proposals have been for it to be the percent that the host communities would receive of the 10% tax would be 25%, let's say over a certain number of years, not in perpetuity like the issue 2, as passed was. Is there anything less that the municipal league would be okay with as a compromise, or is the position just that you think that issue 2 as passed, the 36% in perpetuity should be that, that was the deal as it was cut originally, that should be the deal?
Yes, through the chair to the representative, it's the latter. We would like to have the 36% of the 10%, or if the 10% changed, whatever that number would be.
Follow up?
Yes, follow up, please. Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I don't disagree. One of my mayors, in fact, that I just spoke with yesterday said, we've set aside this money, we've planned it because we assume that the police and fire pension bill is coming down the line that was discussed at the end of the last GA. And this is how, one way that we plan on being able to meet that obligation. I'm very sympathetic and sensitive to your member's position.
Yes, and as you know, budgets are tight, things cost more, so our communities depend on sustainable funding.
And the LGF isn't going up, certainly, as far as we know, based on past experience.
Well, yeah, that's another topic. It goes up to 1.75% in the current version of the budget, but things change with general revenues, and I think you all don't really know how that works, but that's not this bill. So.
Correct. Thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Our next witness is Gerald Moore from GEO Nonprofit. Not here. All right. The next witness is Tim Johnson from the Cannabis Safety First Coalition. Sorry, from the Cannabis Safety First LLC.
No problem. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, members of the House Judiciary Committee, thank you for taking the time today to hear us, the opponents against the sub-bill, Senate Bill 56. And Mr. Chairman, I'd like to thank you for the additional 2 minutes that you've allotted us and for the Tim timer you've put up here, as I'll name it. You have before you my testimony with numerous amendments attached to it, numerous links to justify anything and everything I've said in my testimony, support and so forth. A lot of the stuff we're hearing today from the community here, a lot of it's redundant, and I understand that because they got a passion for the same things. When we voted for issue 2, we damn well knew what we were voting for. Some of the legislators we voted for, we had no idea what they were going to do to us, but we knew what we were voting for with issue 2. Legalization. With legalization comes decriminalization. You don't criminalize something that people are voting to decriminalize. And that's what's happened here. And the sad thing I have to say is I've looked about the room, having been here involved in this for 10 years, my question is, where are the license holders? Why aren't they here defending the consumers and the patients to bring more people through the door to their point of sale? Why are they behind the scenes supporting actually the criminalization of Senate Bill 56? So what my question is to them, and I've got some of the amendments, I guess, is marketing. Why aren't they here fighting for their marketing rights? Why aren't they here fighting for a lot of things, for their business? Rather, they're in here trying to jam down criminalization in these bills that's only going to, as many people have said, drive people back to the illicit market, north, northeast, or wherever, to another state, increase the home grow market, order online. What these people don't understand, and I've said this from the beginning, is when we created the medical program in 2015, 2016, two of the main purposes was first to provide an alternative healthcare option. The second was to decriminalize the criminalization of cannabis in Ohio. In the medical program, that's worked fairly well. And we haven't seen the sky fall. We haven't seen all the fear-mongering language of children dying, hospitals full, impaired driving. We've seen the opposite of most of that. Right down the street at Children's Hospital, go talk to Dr. Patel. He's been studying cannabis in children with various forms of seizures for years. You guys live in a unique state. We have the Ohio Cannabis Museum, probably the largest collection of cannabis artifacts and memorabilia since cannabis, that history that we know of, right here in Athens, Ohio. Take advantage of what you have before you. Take advantage of this community. Because we see one community here called the cannabis community. We don't see the industry here. We talked about social equity, and I know that's a bad word. In Ohio in 2018, an appellate court ruled that that was unconstitutional for the medical program. As Kat suggested, as Anthony suggested, as I've suggested in my things, let's call it an economic impact opportunities license. If you don't like the economic part, call it a cannabis prohibition impact license. We can't go back into starting a new era of cannabis prohibition, and that's what Senate Bill 56 does. So legalization is not legalization until we're free from prosecution. Address these standalone processors, make them vertical as any business should be. Amend the probable cause order. We've heard not only from the prosecutor, we've heard from one of the legislators himself, the two smells of cannabis and hemp can't be differentiated. As a retired law enforcement officer, I can testify to that. We don't know. So how many Fourth Amendments are we going to violate? Clarification on the 2.5 ounces. Are you talking about 2.5 ounces when we're out on our personal property or on a personal person out in the public? Or are we talking about 2.5 ounces of 12 plants for home grow? That's where there's a confusion in the language, and a lot of the people don't understand that part. Can we talk about something simple as reciprocity for out-of-state medical patients to let them come to Ohio? Can we include, as we did with the medical program, an advisory committee to the DCC? Personal cultivation, and then I'll go ahead. On personal cultivation, we talk about 6 or 12 plants. Not everybody smokes their weed. A lot of people produce products, consumables, and topicals. It takes more product, takes more biomass to make that. This is something to consider. With that, I'll go ahead and thank you for your time. And if there's any questions, I'm available to entertain them.
Mr. Johnson, thank you for your testimony. Are there any questions for the witness? Representative Timms.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Tim, for coming to testify today. No question, just a comment about the idea of social equity. Although the court, challenged that language and that terminology, I do think it's important that people who have been criminalized by marijuana and now can't participate in the industry is problematic. And so not sure how we get there as a committee in terms of addressing that, but I think it's very important that we provide opportunity to those who have been jailed, imprisoned, or unable to participate in society in a way that is meaningful. So thank you for raising that.
Through the chair to the representative, thank you, ma'am, for the support in that. I believe that very strong-heartedly, that the impact, prohibition of cannabis, the impact that it caused on individuals, either financial or criminal or whatever it may have done, wrongful incarceration, wrongful injustices, in my opinion, having enforced them for over 20 years in this very county, and seeing the injustices, seeing a 19-year-old kid over a half of a joint, lose his college grant, lose his driver's license, lose his job, get kicked out of his family's home. That opened my eyes to some stuff. When I seen children being taken out of homes from Children's Services in the morning, and I seen, all because of cannabis, but yet there's a gun cabinet over here with firearms, there's a liquor cabinet open, there's pharmaceuticals everywhere, but Children's Service couldn't care less about that. It was legal. It's not legal, it's regulated. Same as the cannabis program. There's nothing legal about legal. It's all about regulation. But thank you very much for that, and I do support that 100%.
Representative Sonnenberg with a question.
Yes, thanks, Chair. Mr. Johnson, thank you again for being here and testifying today. If you were, because you have a history with this going back to the establishment of the medical program in 2017, 2018, what grade would you give the state up till now in terms of the establishment of the medical program, issue 2's passage, and the way that issue 2's been implemented, regulated, and so on?
Through the chair to the representative. Thank you for that question. I'll start with the medical. Aside from, again, having criminal justice reform protections for the patients, I would have gave our medical program C+, maybe a B, what they were doing with the involvement of issue 2 coming in. And on this part, I'm sorry, but I have to give it an F. For the way that, let's be honest, we're spending $70 million a month up in Michigan, Ohio, and Czar. We're spending 45 to 50 in adults with 5-6 states around us purchasing here. This isn't just Ohio adult choice, people. These are 5-6 other states. So I'm going to give it an F for the failure, for the lack of participation from the license holders themselves.
Yes, follow up. You would give it an F up till now?
For the adult program, yes.
Okay. And what grade would you give, even with some of the, well, with the amendments that Rep. Callender's discussed, if you're aware of those, that he mentioned in the last meeting, what would that improve the F grade or make it worse?
Through the chair to the rep. With some of the amendments, due respect to Rep. Callender, yeah, I would have to look. And I actually gave a media interview after the last hearing of seeing some positive movement and feeling, a better program coming, seeing the understanding from, the legislators and understanding that, yeah, this is wrong. We don't need to criminalize these people for something that we're creating a legal program for them. But if they use the program, we're going to criminalize them. It made no sense. So yeah, I would push it up to a B at that point until I see it all on paper.
Okay.
Follow up.
No, thank you very much.
Representative Mohammed with a question.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Johnson, for your testimony and for your advocacy as well. I wanted to go back and briefly talk about the number of dispensaries, capping them at 400. It was initially 350, now it's 400. So that is progress, but I think we should have some perspective too, because in the state of Michigan, with less population than us, they have 1,700. I think 630 are medical, about 1,100 are recreational. State of Oregon, with a population of 4.2 million, has 824. So I think we should have some perspective. Could you briefly cover just the issue regarding standalone processors as well? I think that was covered previously too, and the impact it would have as well on them. Thank you.
Yes, to the chair, to the representative. Michigan and Oklahoma are a good example. In Michigan, as a matter of fact, it's like 800 and some actual dispensaries. They're dual licensed, a lot of them are, and they're controlled by townships, to my understanding. As far as for Ohio, well, Oregon, they're a hot mess. It is what it is. They've got more dispensaries, I think, than they got population there, but they're starting to redact a lot of that. They're understanding their failures. In creating the medical and advising a lot on the adult program, even the hemp program, Ohio's original goal was to have a cap market. States like Michigan, Oregon, I believe Colorado, Oklahoma, and so forth, that run uncapped markets. That's why we see the low pricing that we do. That's why we see the abundance of products available on the market. That's why we see more fair ownership, because the licenses don't cost quite as much. If someone, a small business owner, wants to get in and have a private craft grow or something, or simply as a dispensary or whatever. Prices, since you don't have to buy such a big a license number, they don't cost as much to get them operational. Ohio is very restrictive in our facilities. $1.5, $2 million is what it's going to cost you to open up a dispensary in Ohio, after complying with a lot of the security and the vaults and the cameras and the POSs and so forth. for Ohio, and I can't say it better than Senator Steve Huffman said that, and he's understood this from the very beginning. One day Ohio will be fully legal. We'll be an open market. Why not today? Why do we have to wait and continue to incarcerate people, continue to tie up our safety services, continue to destroy families? Why not start today if the feeling's already there? And Senator Huffman has been involved with this from the beginning. But yeah, I think the current 147 dispensaries that are going to be shooting up here soon, capping it at 400. Let's get to 400. If we need more, uncap it. So I think it's progress as we go.
Follow up? Any other questions? No. Seeing none, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you, sir.
Our next witness is Joey Elwood from Appalachian Girl Cannabis Company. Okay, thank you. Our next witness is Josh Crozier. Welcome, Josh.
Howdy. I am not knowing where to start, right? This room well covered a lot of these issues, so I can see that it's been documented what needs done here. So where should I start? I'm taking it that nobody up here knows who Dr. Raphael Meshulam, Dr. Ethan Roussos, or Jeremy Plum is. I'm hoping I'm correct with that. So if you went to be a referee for basketball, even if it was biddy ball and you didn't know Bird, Magic, and Jordan, I get the challenges, the complexities that you guys are facing entering a scene that you really haven't put the due diligence in to understand where the culture is and where you guys kind of are collectively as people that presented Senate Bill 56. I'm Josh Crozier. I have a master's of science degree in sustainable agriculture. I'm an advisor at the Cannabis History Museum, and I started academia with my natural resources management degree at Hocking College in 2003. I've went full circle now to where I'm the cannabis co-director at Hocking College of the Capstone and Practicum program. And I just want to offer a little bit of insight from what I see. I see a market that's never going to be able to hold the black market down. And that's due to things like expanding the cultivation area for tier 1 and tier 2. Instead of opening this up to what consumers actually want, which is tier 3, right? Everybody started drinking Carlos Rosé because it was in a gallon jug and cheap, right? But we move on to that and we expand. And what the black market offers that you guys are nowhere near on is craft, the quality. And you're producing a lot of flower that goes into edibles indoors when really the only energy allotment that I see useful in the cultivation of cannabis is with craft growing. Who's going to go pay these prices for some what they consider soulless cannabis when they can go out to an Athens and Meg's farmer where they've bought it for decades, where it's proven to be safe, and they can smell it? That's one of the main barriers here. Until you can smell the product, you're not really going to be able to eliminate that side of things. These people want taxed, by the way. They want to contribute to this market and haven't been able to enter that market. I think we need to think about the fantasies of the consumer when we're putting forth this type of legislation, right? I want complex fruits with phylloids and hints of pine in my flower. I want to be able to smell that. It's not just shove this down our throats and we'll take it, because then you're not eliminating that gap, right? And that gap brings financial opportunities to Ohio. Nobody's going to come here for cannabis tourism when what they're buying is some mass-produced, over-trimmed, beat-around buds. They're going to come here, though, when we start opening up these different autoclaves, representative of different areas and soils that it's been produced in here for years. That's what's going to draw some impact from other states. Who's going to come here? I mean, we're not really opening the door for what's most important. The people that voted for this are majority consumers. So, there's other things in the bill that obviously these guys have well covered. One of them I'd like to reiterate is us as hemp farmers at App Girls Cannabis. What you're asking us to do is take a federally compliant product and stick it into a federally illegal dispensary. I can't get over this. I'm sorry. I just can't get over that. I think it's absurd, and I think that we need to stop worrying about how thick the pockets are of the tier 1, tier 2 players and keep shoving down our throats product that we don't really stand behind. We want to know our farmers. We want to be connected to the companies that produce our products. So thank you for hearing me out. I would love to take a question.
Mr. Kosher, thank you for your testimony. Are there any questions for the witness? Ranking Member Isaacson.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for your testimony. What do you, I actually sort of don't totally understand it, so maybe you can help explain, why don't we allow outdoor grow? Like, what's been that debate? What's the sort of...
So there's the fear that a baby will get into the weed and roll around and get high, right? Like, we have grown cannabis. You could be a child and run through a cannabis field and have it all over you and not get high. And that's part of the complexities that I talked about. And I respect you guys for trying to take on this challenge. Cannabis is a very complex plant, and that seems like a hurdle, but really it's opportunity because of the complexities of this plant. You have so many different elements that work with everybody's endocannabinoid system different. But one thing that never happens is you can't touch weed and get high, no matter whose endocannabinoid system you're in. So I think there's also barriers that maybe Tim Johnson could speak on better with security reasons. But we create these security problems by continually trying to impose more criminal penalties for it, keeping that black market thriving when we should be trying to eliminate that gap.
Follow up? Representative Sonnenberg with the question.
Okay, thanks, Chair. Just to follow up on the last question from Rep. Isaacson, is there also, or is this a fallacy that outdoor grow can't be, it's not controlled as much environmentally as indoor, and when it rains, whatever chemicals are in the rain could get into the crop, et cetera?
I appreciate the question. Let's look at the other side of that, right? So we lose a little bit of control environmentally, but what? At the expense of our carbon footprint, the production of fossil fuels going in to heat a grow room. Do you know, like, you could have 1,000 foot, I think it's like 1,000 foot indoor grow room uses as much electricity as a Walmart. This is absurd, and there's no reason when you're putting it into edibles and lotions and topicals, you don't need all those flavor profiles like craft connoisseur people like us at the Cannabis Consumers Coalition care about. You're just doing that for the cannabinoids that plant contains. So why would we use these different light spectrums when we could get this source of energy for free?
Follow up? No. Representative Calendar with question.
Yeah, a couple of questions, and thank you for your advocacy again, as with everyone here. And partially to answer your questions, the concept of making Ohio a cannabis tourism site is wonderful. I think everybody testifying here would probably agree with that. However, that's something to work on in the future, and there will be bills after this passes or doesn't pass to try to enhance that. But I would suggest that we put our efforts into decriminalization, making sure the money goes home and protecting the rights people passed first, and then working on that. We're kind of pretty far behind Colorado and Oregon and California. And I'm not sure the will of the voters is to make Ohio the travel destination for cannabis users. But it is clearly the will of the voter to make it legalized and not criminal. So I admire your efforts, but that may be better looked at another bill. And one of the concerns I want to ask you about as a grower, and one of the concerns that we've heard a lot as far as the indoor grow preference over outdoor grow, is the use of herbicides and pesticides and the potential impact those things would have on the final product. And one of the efforts and successes of our program so far is that when a consumer goes to a dispensary and buys a product, you know everything that's in there between our testing and our security and the seed to sale monitoring. How would you address that concern of the herbicides and pesticides? Not just I don't think it's just chemicals and rain or kids being exposed by running through. I think there's a lot of concerns about that element as well. How would you address that concern?
Well, I think Rodney Hash talked well about it earlier. But I guess I would address that by trying to open up that testing, not only for home growers to where they can go send samples in, but I would also make the same standards apply, right? So out in Meigs and Athens, we coordinate with our farmers and our neighbors. So for instance, when the sheep farmer here knows that the corn farmer next to him is going to spray that day, he's able to move those sheep away. But there's obviously you got 2 plants in the way. You can't just move your plants, but you can communicate with people and find a way to work things out, because we've been doing that in agriculture for a very long time. And not only is that the nature of most farmers, but cannabis people even take that to more extremes, right? We have respect for each other and our communities that we live in. So I think those challenges are, and not to mention when we consider all the herbicides and pesticides on our food that don't get tested as rigorously, how are the standards for cannabis so much higher than the standards for food? You could go swab a tomato and find all these same things on it. So I guess I do appreciate you calling me out about rambling about my fantasies. I know we're far from that point. I'm just like visualizing this deli style where you can walk in and actually let your olfactory system and your limbic system recall memories. Cannabis is an aromatherapeutic crop, right? So I'm fantasizing right now and feeling the effects of it. I can't wait to smell it without even consuming it. I want to be able to smell it. And I think that's what would, even if it's a decade down the road, that's where it needs to go to help close that gap between why would somebody not go to Athens where they can smell 20 different kinds of cannabis, pick it up, smell it, touch it, know that they want to buy it before they go spend $200 on a purchase in a bag that they can't see the product. They're just fed a whole bunch of deceit on the back, terpenes and minor cannabinoids, instead of what matters most, the olfactory system, the smells and aromas.
Follow up?
Thank you. And I think a lot of folks share that long-term vision, kind of like our analogous to our wine industry in Ohio, where we're slowly becoming more and more nationally recognized for what our soil can produce and our climate can produce, and our great fresh water, especially, not to detract from your area, but from Northeast Ohio. So I think that's a great vision in the future, and certainly would participate. But I just don't want to build expectations in this bill to get us there, because first we have to make sure we're not criminalized before we can get to the artistic phase, which hopefully we get to. On the herbicides, pesticides, other agricultural runoff issue, I assure you my concerns are not limited to cannabis, but also to the food we eat. And I think nationally we're near a crisis situation with that. So the concerns are not limited to cannabis, but that doesn't mean they're not legitimate concerns. Your tomato swab having all kinds of chemicals is a very good example of that. So thank you for pointing out it's not limited to cannabis.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Our next witness is C.C. Brown from Invita Nutraceuticals. Welcome to committee.
Thank you. Chairman and members of the committee, I come before you today as a small business owner and an Ohioan, deeply committed to the growth and integrity of our local hemp industry. The issue before us is time sensitive and demands immediate legislative action. However, it's crucial that the measures that we pass do not inadvertently harm the very industry that Ohio has the potential to benefit from. Senate Bill 56 poses a direct threat to the survival of small businesses like mine and ultimately to the consumers who rely on these products. Rather than restricting access to hemp products and pushing Ohio's small businesses out of work, we need regulatory framework that ensures that these products remain accessible while prioritizing public health and safety. My husband and I have invested our life savings into our business, which is not only crucial for our family's survival, but also provides opportunities for our children to pursue their dreams. Through the success of our business, my daughter has the chance to further her athletic and academic career in Chester, England, which was all made possible by the small business I built right here in Ohio. We're a manufacturer and a distributor of hemp products based here in Ohio, and the impact of Senate Bill 56, as currently written, would be devastating. One of the most concerning provisions of SB 56 is the proposal to move hemp into dispensaries. While some consumers may feel comfortable purchasing from dispensaries, this would alienate a large portion of the consumer base. There is a significant stigma surrounding dispensaries, especially among older clientele. I have had the opportunity to do outside sales for my distribution company, which put me in many smoke shops, convenience stores, gas stations all around Ohio. I met numerous individuals who consumed hemp products and had the privilege of hearing all of their stories. Take Ed, for example. Ed purchases hemp gummies from his local marathon store, the very gummies that I manufacture here in Ohio, and they help his PTSD, and he is able to purchase them from his local corner store. Ed's story is just one of many. For people like him, the accessibility of these products at local stores is not just convenient, it's essential. I am also deeply concerned about the impact that this legislation would have on the manufacturing side of our industry. If hemp products are moved into dispensaries, who's going to manufacture them? Will it be the same multi-billion-dollar marijuana companies that produce marijuana gummies? By doing so, we are effectively handing over control of the industry to these large corporations, sidelining small businesses like mine. Ohio's small businesses trusted that our state would protect us. The actions outlined in SB 56 would harm those of us who have been committed to doing things the right way, investing in our communities, and operating with transparency and responsibility. I respectfully ask that you reconsider the provisions of SB 56 that would drive Ohio's small businesses out of the industry. My company sources our hemp from a lab in Colorado that complies with Ohio laws and provides full panel testing, ensuring we're doing everything we can to uphold the integrity of this industry. Just yesterday, we had an unannounced inspection from the Ohio Department of Agriculture, which we passed at 100%. I would like to extend an invitation to each one of you to tour our facility and to see where you can witness firsthand how the entire manufacturing and distribution process operates. I urge you to work with us, the small businesses that make up the backbone of Ohio's economy, to ensure that we can continue providing these essential products for our community while staying viable and thriving. The future of our small business and the people that we serve deserve it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your testimony. Are there any questions? Representative Sennenberg with question.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks for coming in to testify, Ms. Brown. Question, so you do agree that we need some regulation and that there are issues with some of the products that are sold at, let's say, gas stations that are marketed towards children, correct?
Through the chair to the representative, yes, there needs to be regulation, and that's what we need to work on. Not banning an entire industry that is actually helping people. There needs to be regulation, not prohibition.
Follow up?
As part of that regulation, would you agree for like the product that you sell, for it to be sold for only 18 and over consumers?
Through the chair to the representative, I would agree that it would be at least 18, if not 21 and older, that should only have access to those products, correct?
Follow up?
Okay, no follow-up. Thank you.
Any other questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you for your time.
Our next witness is Wesley Bryant from 420 Craft Beverages. Welcome.
Thank you. Chairman Thomas, Ranking Member Isaacson, and Vice Chair Swearingen, and members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to provide opposition testimony today. My name is Wesley Bryant. I'm the founder of 420 Craft Beverages, a licensed hemp processor under Ohio License 391187P. I appear today as someone who is actively regulated, audited, and in compliance with both state and federal hemp law. SB 56 proposes to redefine entire categories of lawful hemp products as intoxicating and move them under the exclusive jurisdiction of the dispensary system governed by the federally illegal state marijuana program. But here's the legal flaw. Those licenses are closed. Today, as a fully compliant hemp processor, I cannot obtain one of those dispensary licenses because the marijuana licensing system is not only capped, it is closed to all new applicants. And under SB 56, it would be closed permanently to anyone who does not already hold one. So this bill doesn't just regulate my business, it extinguishes it. It nullifies my active hemp license without due process and places me into a regulatory framework I am legally barred from entering. Let's be clear about the constitutional implications here. First, federal preemption. The 2018 Farm Bill codified 7 USC 16390. It defines hemp products to include all derivatives, cannabinoids, and isomers below 0.3% delta-9 THC on a dry weight basis. That definition is binding. In AK Futures versus Boyd Street Distro, the Ninth Circuit reaffirmed that even hemp products with psychoactive properties fall under federal protection as long as they meet that threshold. Second, the Dormant Commerce Clause. This bill carves out Ohio's entire hemp market for a closed class of marijuana operators. That's discriminatory on its face. In Tennessee Wine versus Thomas, the U.S. Supreme Court held that states cannot erect market access barriers favoring local incumbents in regulated industries, especially when those industries intersect with federally lawful goods. Third is due process. SB 56 strips my license of its value without compensation, notice, or recourse. That's a regulatory taking. And as established in U.S. versus Carlton and Eastern Enterprises versus Apfel, retroactive economic penalties that must meet strict scrutiny, particularly when they eliminate vested rights. Finally, this bill opens Ohioans to liability under 18 U.S.C. 922 G3 by reclassifying legal hemp as marijuana use, jeopardizing firearm rights without clear public notice. I support the stated goal of protecting children and ensuring adequate consumer protections for these products. This can be accomplished through age verifications, banning synthetic cannabinoids, and tightening enforcement. But SB 56 doesn't do that. It rewrites the rules, closes the gate, and locks out law-abiding operators like me with no path forward. That is not regulation, that is exclusion, and I urge this committee to reject it. Thank you, and I'm open for any questions.
Thank you for your testimony. Are there any questions for the witness? Representative Sonnenberg with question.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Mr. Bryant, thanks for your testimony today.
Sure, thank you.
So is your testimony that under the current version of Senate Bill 56 as passed, we'd be violating the 2018 Farm Bill because of the, I guess, the dry weight basis definition?
Sure. So a lot of this, and I'm sorry, through the chair to the rep. Was that the whole question?
Yes.
Okay. So a lot of this issues, and I heard mentioned today of these products that are enticing to children, or these very, very, very psychoactive products that are on the market. Essentially, the Farm Bill specified, and I'll read it to you: the plant cannabis sativa L and any part of that plant, including the seeds thereof and all derivatives, extracts, cannabinoids, isomers, acids, salts, and salts of isomers, whether growing or not, with a delta 9 THC concentration of not more than 0.3% on a dry weight basis. I want to emphasize in there, at no point did it say that they could take it into a lab and convert it to something that it wasn't already. Even though you go from CBD to THC, there's still a synthetic action that happens there. So I bring this up to bring attention to the committee here that if you guys would just adopt the federal definition of what is federally legal hemp and exclude converted cannabinoids from that, I'm going to give you a for instance basis. Right now, the market says a 3 to 5 gram gummy that's what is bought and purchased, even in the medical dispensaries. You can only put 3 milligrams per gram into that product and be legal federally in state. So that means a 5 gram gummy could only contain 15 milligrams if you got rid of the converted cannabinoids. Point blank, period. That means all of these high potency 500 milligrams, I've seen it multiple times in here with people bringing up all these products, these 1,000 milligram Nurge ropes and stuff. It wouldn't exist. Simply won't be there with natural cannabinoids. So I implore this committee to really look at that federal definition, and anybody that needs further clarification on that, I'd be more than happy to do so. But I think ultimately that fixes a lot of the root problems that sit right here in Ohio's gas stations, liquor stores, you name it. That fixes a lot of those problems right out the gate. I hope that answered that question.
Yes, thank you. As far as the beverages, do you think the 5 milligram limit under the current version of the bill is okay?
Depending on where it's sold. As someone that sells beverages, and I do make things, just to be clear, I do make things that are over 5 milligrams. However, when you're talking about bars and restaurants, I feel a 5 to 10 milligram cap there is honestly necessary. But where I don't agree with it is in other locations such as carryouts, liquor stores, gas stations. So, on and on. I can go in there and buy a Monaco into any of those gas stations, and those are double shots of liquor right there. I can't buy that same Monaco in a restaurant or bar. So I think there's some definite difference between firms that carry those products. And I think that essentially capping bars and restaurants at a reasonable number, I think that's a necessary evil. I think we can move forward from there in the future, but putting those same caps on carryouts and take-home products, I think is foolish. And I can't speak for all the dispensaries in the state of Ohio, but I've been in there, a lot of them ones in Cleveland and Columbus. There's no infrastructure there to handle the thousands of beverages that are on the market right now.
Follow-up?
No follow-up, thank you.
Any other questions for witness? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Our next witness is Kevin Henderson from RYYN Botanicals. Welcome to committee.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Chairman, Vice Chair, Ranking Member, honorable members of the committee, my name is Kevin Henderson, and I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I am the owner of Wren Botanicals. We are located in London, Ohio, and a company that is designed on bringing all natural, organic, hemp-derived THC beverages to consumers. Our flagship product, Hydro, is currently in production and set to launch in July. But if Senate Bill 56, as it currently stands, passes, is going to affect my business along with countless others. We will not survive. Ohio has long prided itself on supporting small businesses and fostering entrepreneurship, offering people the opportunity to pursue the American dream. That belief is what has driven my support for the Conservative Party for the majority of my voting life. A party built on common sense policies that help businesses grow and prosper. Yet Senate Bill 56 contradicts these values, imposing unnecessary restrictions and threatening innovation, competition, and economic opportunity for Ohio entrepreneurs. A brief history. In 2015, Ohioans overwhelmingly rejected the state's first attempt at legalization, not due to opposition to the cannabis itself, but due to concerns over monopolization and unfair market control. This decision reaffirmed a key Ohio principle: a free and competitive market where businesses, especially small businesses and independent ones, have the opportunity to succeed. Now we stand at yet another regulatory crossroads, one that threatens to cripple Ohio's ability to compete in a growing industry and devastate small businesses statewide. Restrictive policies such as limiting hemp-derived THC products to under 10 milligrams per serving would not just affect manufacturers, but also over 850 retail stores across Ohio. These include smoke shops, vape stores, liquor retailers, and CBD stores such as SunMed and Centerville, many of which have integrated hemp-derived THC products to meet growing consumer demand and remain competitive. The financial consequences of over-regulation extend far beyond immediate losses. Ohio's small retailers risk losing millions in revenue annually as consumers turn to unregulated alternatives or out-of-state purchases. Hemp-derived THC market growth would stall, preventing new business, job creation, and local economic development. Other states such as Minnesota, Colorado, and Oregon are all thriving under balanced regulation, while Ohio risks falling behind in innovation, entrepreneurship, and tax revenue. If Senate Bill 56 moves forward as written, Ohio will lose businesses, eliminate jobs, and weaken the ability to compete in an emerging market. A clear generational shift is underway. I'm not sure if you guys have seen some of the reports that are coming out. Millennials and Gen Zers are increasingly turning to hemp-derived THC products over alcohol, driven by health concerns, changing social norms, and demand for functional alternatives. In 2023, Gallup poll found that alcohol consumption among adults aged 18 to 34 dropped from 72 to 62% over the past decade. Over the past 2 decades, a 2024 Lending Tree survey revealed that 55% of Gen Z regret spending as much money on alcohol, fueling interest in health-conscious alternatives like hemp-derived THC beverages. Alcohol use disorder affects 10% of Americans over the age of 12, contributing to over 140,000 deaths annually. Excessive alcohol use accounts for 13.5% of deaths among adults aged 20 to 39, emphasizing the need for alternatives. Hemp-derived THC beverages offer a moderate controlled alternative to alcohol, allowing consumers to enjoy social experiences without the severe health risks associated with excessive drinking. Restricting these products is going to push consumers back towards alcohol. In November 23, Ohio voters decisively approved Issue 2, legalizing recreational cannabis for adults over 21 years old, with 57% of the vote. This overwhelming majority made clear that Ohioans support regulated cannabis market, recognizing the economic and social benefits. I urge this committee to carefully consider the far-reaching impact of Senate Bill 56, not just on business owners like me, but Ohio's economy, consumer choice, and its ability to compete in a growing national market. Thank you for the time. Are there any questions?
Mr. Henderson, thank you for the testimony. For your testimony, are there any questions? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Our next witness is Sarah Coya Bryant from Cool Digs, Inc. Welcome to committee.
Thank you, Chairman Thomas, members of committee. I'm Sarah Coya Bryant. I'm a small business owner in Athens, Ohio, and a new member of the Cannabis Consumer Coalition. I start with Article 1 from the Ohio Constitution. All political power is inherent in the people. Government is instituted for their equal protection and benefit, and they have the right to abolish, reform the same whenever they may deem necessary. So rights become real when people demand them. Ohio adopted the powers of our statutory initiative back in 1912, and Ohioans understood the initiative power as a meaningful check of your legislative body. So Ohio even provides some protections for citizens' authority. And the ORC in 73128 states that a mayor can't veto a law passed by citizens' initiative. 73136, no person shall knowingly misrepresent language of a citizen's initiative. I can assure you that issue 2 was clearly explained and embraced by Ohio voters. In a recent case, Western Resolve Law Review, Derek Klinger states that a common assumption is that Ohio lawmakers have complete discretion to alter voters-approved laws because, unlike some other states, it's not clearly and explicitly prohibited. But Ohio courts have never ruled on this issue, leaving the question unresolved and creating unnecessary not only for our marijuana law, but also for the future liability of Ohio's century-old statutory initiative power. So while Ohio has not taken this up, several state Supreme Courts have explored the subject of citizen legislation protections, including the most recent one of Utah's Supreme Court in 2024, decision of the League of Women Voters of Utah versus Utah State Legislature, where the court unanimously rejected the legislator's argument that the constitutional silence on legislative overrides means that they were free and permitted to modify the law the people passed. Utah ruled that the original public meaning of the state's constitution initiative provisions declared that all political power is inherent in the people, and that they have the right to alter and reform their government as the public welfare may require. The court held that the constitutional protections initiative laws from initiated laws are protected from legislative interference when they seek to reform the state government, but it doesn't impose an absolute bar on legislative changes. They held that they could clarify the constitutional standard, explaining that the legislature may amend initiative laws so long as the changes did not infringe on the people's reform right. For example, if the amendment furthered or facilitated the reform, but did not impair it. So removing the social equity in Tier 3 program infringes on the people's reform rights. While this bill may be an improvement over House Bill 160, it still falls far short of honoring the intent of issue 2. My company supplies goods to Ohioans' current licensed grows and small-scale cultivators in Southeast Ohio. We're eager to grow alongside hemp and cannabis farmers in our community, and every day of delay in implementing issue 2 costs us and others like us vital opportunities and incomes. Athens County voted in favor of legalization by 78%. Like Josh was mentioning earlier, we imagine a future shaped by locally owned craft and cannabis businesses, much like the small business industry that defines our region with breweries. Sub-Bill 56 jeopardizes that vision. We voted for access, specifically for the micro-cultivation licenses and new dispensary licenses designed to support small business, disadvantaged entrepreneurs, and local communities. This bill funnels that opportunity to large, wealthy corporatives, often from outside of Ohio, while excluding real Ohioans with our knowledge, experience, and community ties. It restricts cannabis beverage sales to dispensaries, leaving out our local businesses and retailers. And even more concerning, it redirects our tax revenue from the municipalities to the state's general fund. This undermines the local reinvestment monies that were central to our public support for issue 2. If the problem is there's no mechanism to currently redirect the funds to our communities, I would urge you to create one. That's your job. Cannabis users are not a public safety threat. This bill criminalizes harmless behavior such as outdoor use and sharing between adults, actions that waste law enforcement resources and stigmatize responsible users. Sub-Bill 56 erodes home rule and democratic decision-making. It dismantles our pathway to entrepreneurship for working Ohioans and replaces it with the corporate monopoly. We're not passive observers. We're organizing a coalition of farmers, consumers, and advocates, and we will return with even larger numbers to defend our rights and the laws we passed. I urge you to stand with Ohio's voters and not against them.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Are there any questions? Seeing none, thank you very much for your testimony.
Thank you.
Next, we have Mr. John Lynch.
Vice Chair Matthew, members of the committee, good afternoon. I'm an Ohio beverage manufacturer, and I appreciate the opportunity to testify. I'm here in support of additional language that would allow bars and restaurants to continue serving hemp beverages to customers. Hemp beverages are currently served in hundreds and hundreds of bars and restaurants throughout Ohio. People are enjoying them safely, and the language in this bill is going to make these beverages even safer by lowering the amount of THC allowed in these drinks. With the new hemp beverage excise tax, the state will collect 33 cents on every can sold. The revenue generated by bars and restaurants would add millions of dollars to the general revenue fund. The people consuming these drinks come from every walk of life. Tennis moms, football dads, retirees, veterans, young people who don't drink beer, the list goes on and on. My last reason for wanting these drinks in bars and restaurants is more personal. I don't use THC or drink these. I prefer beer, but I really enjoy being able to sit at a bar and have a conversation with someone who's drinking what they want to drink. And Ohioans really do want to drink these at bars and restaurants. Thank you again for considering an amendment that would keep these beverages in bars and restaurants. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Are there any questions? Yes, ranking member.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for your testimony. I represent over the Rhine, Walnut Hills, downtown Cincinnati, so a lot of places, bars and restaurants that would be harmed by this prohibition. And I honestly, I just don't get it. Can you think of why would we, because the way the bill is currently drafted, in my understanding, the bars and restaurants can sell these products, just not for consumption on the premises. Correct. Or through the can you, like, do you have any concerns about the sales on the premises? Have you heard of any negative ramifications of sales on the premises? Just, I'm trying to wrap my head around why we would make that distinction. What's going
Through the chair, no, I've been selling these products for about a year now throughout the state. Mine are very low dose. Ours are all 2 milligrams or 2.5 milligrams. We actually have talked to bars, and we were going with a very low dose because a bar wants to sell several of these. They don't want to sell one drink that's 10 milligrams and then have somebody buy nothing else. I don't like, there's always a fear with any bar product of overindulging. And I guess, that's the fear with this. It's just a new thing. But I think the last year has played out where these have really taken up a huge market share in the bars that are doing it. And I haven't heard of a single instance of a negative outcome.
Thank you.
Follow
Thank you,
up?
Chair. No.
Great. Rep. Calendar, please.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I was out of the room. Was it 3 weeks ago when you testified? So I wanted to be here today and disclose, which you tastefully did not in your testimony, that you also have legislators who consume your product. And I appreciate what you have provided and just for full disclosure to everyone, you and I have had drinks at the bar where you're drinking beer and I'm having your products, and really appreciate it. What would be the impact on you as a local business if this law were to go into effect and in effect criminalize something that currently is common usage?
Through the chair, there are specific numbers. Like this bill would still allow me to sell to bars or not bars, sorry, grocery stores, convenience stores for to go. And like some really rough numbers, conservative, but to keep them simple, Ohio sold about 2.5 billion 12-ounce cans or bottles last year. Of that, again, conservative, but to keep the numbers easy, 250 million of those were sold in bars and restaurants. If you look at this product and the way it's trending, I'd say, again, conservatively, 10% of that bar market could easily be these types of drinks. And I think that's really conservative. That's 25 million cans sold. So that's a big part for me, but that's where I think some of the estimates of revenues generated by these types of drinks are the really, really low end. That 25 million cans would be $8.3 million for the general revenue fund. And I think the grocery store market is going to crush in this area too. So it wouldn't put me out of business, but that's why I ended my testimony by saying, like, it's kind of a personal reason too. I want to be able to sit with people and drink what they want to drink. Thank you.
Follow up?
Yes, so that is for you and for the actual CBD or hemp-derived THC-containing beverages. Have you talked to anyone, or do you have any knowledge? There's some numbers out there that bars themselves have seen a 20% drop in revenue since issue 2 passed. Have you given any thought or had any discussion to the bar and music venues that have liquor licenses, owners and management, as to the impact that this would have on them? Would it further that loss? Is this product a way to kind of stopgap the loss that we're seeing there?
Yes, through the chair. Yes, every bar I go into right now, this is the conversation, like whether these are going to stay legal or not. There are several beer and wine wholesalers that now carry these products. And so every bar now has the opportunity to carry them, and very few are turning it down. And it's in part because of that. They see a sector of people who are no longer drinking alcohol, and this is providing an alternative.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you so much for your
Thank you.
testimony. Mr. R.J. Creamer.
Vice Chairman Matthews, Ranking Member Isaacson, and all members of the House Judiciary Committee, I stand before you today not as a politician or a lobbyist, but as a testament to the power of opportunity and the enduring spirit of the American dream. I'm here to urge you to oppose Sub Bill 56, a bill that is vital to the future of countless small businesses and hardworking Ohioans. My story begins on a 13-acre farm about 60 miles north of here, a couple miles outside of a village of 300 people. So to say I come from humble beginnings is an understatement. My first 29 years of living, the only way you could describe it would be extremely hardworking. Growing up on 13 acres, that's not a lot. So I baled hay, I baled straw, I raised sheep, I loaded hogs, I milked cows, I did carpentry, construction, grout work, landscaping, split wood. There would be some days where I would wake up at 5 to milk cows, bale hay in the afternoon, and then I would go bounce at a local bar until 2:30, go home, sleep 3 hours, milk cows again. That all changed one day after I got into a dispute with my father, as one does when you farm with him for so many years. After that, I walked into a smoke shop here on High Street looking for a change, just a different way to earn a living, basically anything that would get me off the farm, right? And luckily, that single opportunity was a chance to earn a living in a different way. It transformed my life trajectory. It was a lifeline, a bridge to a better future. That job allowed me to support my family, to ease the burdens of my parents that they'd carried for so long. I was able to improve their living conditions, to provide them with a level of comfort and security that I had only dreamed of. Finally, after all those years of hard work, the American dream was unfolding before my very eyes. I say that now. 4 years ago, I walked into that smoke shop, started as a cashier. I stand before you today. I now own that smoke shop that I'm speaking about. I've been able to hire men and women of every race, religion, sexual orientation, creed, walk of life, and pay them a livable wage in uncertain times. And then I've been able to provide them promises of maybe a similar future to my own. And if SB 56 passes, that would pretty much undermine what I've been doing and what I've been continuing to work on in my life. Our customers deserve the freedom to choose the products they consume. With sensible regulation, we can ensure a safety and responsible industry, one that benefits both consumers and state's economy. I know some may be concerned about the potential impacts of this industry, but I urge you to listen to the voices of your constituents. Ohio voters do not want to see hemp vanish from our stores, nor do they want to see it regulated solely to dispensaries. They want a diverse market with options and the freedom to make informed choices. Furthermore, I must address the ongoing attempts by the marijuana industry to cast a negative light on current hemp retailers. This is nothing more than a thinly veiled effort to monopolize the market, to restrict competition, and concentrate power in the hands of the few. Such a move would fly in the face of everything America stands for opportunity, competition, and the freedom to pursue one's dream. I implore you, members of the state House legislature, to oppose SB 56. Support small businesses, support the American dream, and support the freedom of Ohioans to make their own choices. Let us work together to create a thriving and responsible industry that benefits all Ohioans, not just a select few. I thank you for your time and consideration. I will try my best to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Are there any questions? Seeing none to my left or right. Thank you so much for your testimony. All right. And now Jamie Courtney, please.
Thank you, guys. Chairman Thomas, Vice Chair Matthews, Ranking Member Isaacson, and members of the Ohio House Judiciary Committee. Thank you for the opportunity to provide the testimony in opposition to the hemp provisions included in Senate Bill 56. As a small business owner operating a SunMed Your CBD store in Belle Fountain, Ohio, I am deeply concerned about the devastating fiscal impact this bill would have on responsible hemp retailers like myself and the communities we serve. Senate Bill 56 would effectively ban the sale of nearly all hemp-derived products from stores like mine by restricting access exclusively to licensed marijuana dispensaries. While this may not be labeled a ban outright, the real-world result is the same: closure of compliant, law-abiding small businesses across the state. When the Ohio legislation legalized the hemp in 2019 following the federal farm bill, entrepreneurs like me made significant investments in launching storefronts, building customer trust, and creating jobs. We followed the law and advocated for reasonable regulation, including age restrictions, testing, labeling requirements, and enforcement against bad actors. But Senate Bill 56 doesn't regulate our industry, it just dismantles it. By forcing hemp products with even trace amounts of THC into dispensaries, the state is unfairly picking winners and losers, rewarding marijuana operators while shutting out hundreds of small local businesses that serve a very different customer base. The majority of my customers are older adults, often over the age of 55, seeking natural alternatives for wellness, sleep, or pain relief, and are not interested in getting high. There is a better path. I urge the committee to consider the approach taken in House Bill 198, which responsibly regulates hemp without dismantling the industry. This bill includes age restrictions, licensing, product testing, child-resistant packaging, and truth in labeling, which is the start of a robust framework to help protect the consumers while preserving access and fairness. In closing, please understand Senate Bill 56 doesn't just regulate hemp, it bans it from responsible small businesses like mine that have played by the rules, supported our communities, and provided safe, effective products to our Ohioans who depend on them. Thank you for your time and your consideration.
Great. Thank you so much for your testimony. Do we have any questions? Seeing none, thank you so much for coming today. All right, We have Tasha Roundtree, please.
Good afternoon, ranking members and all the members of the House today. I started this journey 10 years ago. I started this journey 10 years ago after I was diagnosed with polycystic ovarian. I had a 10-pound tumor and had to have it removed. The medication that they had me on caused me severe constipation and ripped my intestines apart. Until a nurse whispered in my ear, go to Michigan, because my family was ready to send me to Colorado because that was the only place that we had been told where you could get medical marijuana. I did not want to become an addict because that was the beginning of the opioid crisis. I was looking for an alternative way. I went to Michigan, but unfortunately Michigan would not treat us because I was not a Michigan resident. So I had to give up my Ohio residency and my Ohio driver's license. I had to stay in a homeless shelter, but the homeless shelter would not accept me because I was coming for medical purposes. So I had to get a hotel room. I had to buy food and submit a receipt that I was not coming to be a burden on the state of Michigan. And that is how I established my Michigan residency. So in order to become a medical marijuana patient, that is how I received a caregiver. Once I received a caregiver and became a patient, I received a scholarship to actually go to a cannabis college. I obtained a certificate at that time because at that time you couldn't even teach cannabis because that was teaching the facilitation of an illegal drug. So they were threatening to put teachers in jail at that time for even teaching how to grow. But I studied cultivation, processing, and dispensary management. I came back to Ohio and worked with the clerk of courts. I worked with at that time, it was Sheriff Beal. I worked with the University of Dayton and ran expungement clinics. I wrote the legislation that appeared on a ballot, and we actually legislatively decriminalized marijuana in the city of Dayton. And we have done the governor's pardons and expedited clemency. And we have done this to make sure that patients were safe and not going to jail, because we found that 7 out of 10 African Americans or people of color were receiving the tickets. We did that and got signatures so that rich people could get business license. And we were told that if we played the game, that one day we would absolutely have our chance to get our license. We did that and issue 2 passed. And we were told that with that, we would get social equity license. And then we were told, it's illegal and we can't get it. There was no way for us to get into the industry legally. So we got into the hemp business, because now we could be federally legal. And now we can't even get into that because now it goes to the dispensary, which is closed. But now every rich white man can open up a dispensary in my neighborhood and sell marijuana in my neighborhood, a drive-through dispensary in my neighborhood that we would go to jail for, couldn't go to college for, couldn't get a loan for, get kicked out of housing for. But the hemp products that we were allowed to sell, we now can't sell. So I'll go to jail for selling a legal product that's federally legal, but you all gave out additional license and didn't open it up to the public. You simply gave people who already had licenses license. But here we have hemp products in a way that they're already licensed to check IDs. So if you just regulated the hemp products, we wouldn't be here. If you gave us simply a way of getting into the industry legal, we would become partners and not pariahs. We want legitimacy. If you trust convenience stores to sell aspirin, extra strength aspirin, over-the-counter aspirin, why are we not calling hemp over-the-counter instead of intoxicating? Let's work together instead of fighting and becoming combative. There is already a system to set and to to track IDs. There's a system. There's a system to make sure. And what we don't have a system for, let us regulate and work together. And I apologize for going over time, but I have been working on this for 10 years. I have sacrificed. I have worked with the homeless to get them off of drugs by getting them to use cannabis and then transferring them off of cannabis to hemp, where if they were having a bad day, they didn't have to go to a dispensary. They could go to a convenience store and get what they need. There is absolutely no reason why we are still having these conversations when we know what works. And what works is opportunity. If social equity scares you, let's call it craft. But there's no way we should have been allowed to vote on something that has already been deemed illegal. How does the Attorney General allow us to vote on something? And how do you generate money in a fund and then tell us we can't get it and we can't get the money? And you lose the opportunity. Everything in the state of Ohio cannot be a lose-lose for every woman, every minority, every veteran, every disabled person. Are you here to help us or are you here to cripple us? Shout out to Teddy Smith, who made sure that every voice got heard today. Thank you. Are there any questions?
Questions? Ranking member?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for your testimony. I'll echo the good job Teddy's doing. A lot of shout outs today. I want to try and put a finer point on it, on something that I think is so important, that what you're saying is, my understanding is, and correct me if I'm wrong here, that because of the limited entrance into the sort of formalized cannabis market that Issue 2 set up, a lot of the people and small businesses that are run by veterans, by minorities, especially by members of the Black community, are in the hemp industry because it was so hard to get into the cannabis industry. And that by going after the hemp industry in this way, without finding some sort of compromise, a lot of those minority-owned businesses, veteran-owned businesses, women-owned businesses are at risk of going under. Could you just explain a little bit about what that risk is, or if that's true, like why you think that is?
Absolutely. When you all say that you can only have a finite number of cultivators and a finite number of processors and a finite number of dispensary owners, right? You can have as many cultivators as you want, and you can have as many processors as you want. But if you don't have a place to sell it, which is the dispensary, that's the shelf space. So you could be a processor, but if you can't get the product, the biomass to make the product, you don't have a product to put on the shelf. So if you don't have enough, if you can't get in to grow the product, then you can't get in to make the product. And then that means there's no room for you. So if there's no license that are available, there's no way for you to get in. So the only way that you can get in is to go through hemp. But a hemp product would make sense to me is to say, well, let's use this as lower dosage, where now you actually can market a product. Now you can actually advertise a product. Now you can have let's say a music fest with hemp products to say, oh, this sells, oh, this sells, this sells. You can do product research and management by giving them an opportunity and say, now this actually works for this disorder. This works for this. Now you can take it up a grade. It's almost like if you would say, hemp is the version of aspirin at 200 milligrams, 400 milligrams, but ibuprofen is the dispensary level. Or you say, hemp is the cooler and dispensary is the Hennessy. So they can work together without competing, but it's just a greed of, we want your money too, because we see people wanting you, but everybody doesn't want to get high. Some people just want to get healthy, because when we say we want that travel and tourism, why do you want to get healthy? Because we want to go to the concerts. We want to go skydiving or fishing or whatever it is people do when they're not throwing up or sick or hurt or in pain. We want to live. We want to have a life. We want to be able to go enjoy things that you can't do when you are sick, when you are bleeding to death on a couch.
Seeing no other questions, thank you so much for your testimony and for being here today.
Thank you.
Kinsey Cherry, please.
Good morning, members of the committee. My name is Kenzie Cherry, and I've worked in Ohio's cannabis industry for over 4 years now. I travel all over the state and have had the privilege of meeting hundreds of patients and consumers. I've heard firsthand how cannabis has changed and in some cases even saved lives. I'm not a politician, and speaking here today is a little bit intimidating for me, but I know the ways that cannabis can benefit people. I have seen what it does for the people across Ohio, and I know that Senate Bill 56 does not reflect that. Over 57% of Ohioans voted to legalize cannabis through issue 2. That included promises of social equity, protections for tenants, fair access to medicine, and long-term revenue for our communities. This bill breaks those promises. Instead of 36% in tax revenue to townships and municipalities indefinitely, it drops that to just 25% for 7 years. It adds vague and confusing language about potency, limiting access for patients who rely on stronger medicine, and forcing them to pay more for relief. It also punishes the very people who were harmed by cannabis criminalization from barring them from working in the legal industry. That's just not justice. Cannabis isn't the problem in Ohio, but ignoring the will of the voters is. Please don't pass a bill that restricts access, deepens inequality, and shuts out the voices of people who've lived this reality. Ohio deserves better. Please reject Senate Bill 56.
Thank you so much. Do we have any questions? Seeing none, thank you so much for your testimony. Great job, everyone in person. Please, everyone, look at your tablets. We have written testimony, some interested parties, some proponents, some opponents, and please make sure that you read through all of those, and they will all be part of the record, and we will also convert those submitted in-person testimonies that were not here to be part of the written record as well. With all of that, for Senate Bill number 56, that constitutes the third hearing for that bill. We now call forward House Bill number 108 for its second hearing on proponents. And we have Mr. Sexton here as a proponent, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the House Judiciary Committee. I'm Rob Sexton, here today to represent Buckeye Firearms Association. BFA is Ohio's premier defender of the Second Amendment in our state, protecting the rights of more than 4 million gun owners across the state. I'm here to testify today in favor of House Bill 108. Ohio has enacted strong, sensible laws that recognize our natural rights of self-defense, including our right to carry a concealed firearm, what we would call castle doctrine, and also the removal of the duty to retreat. And yet, in too many cases, victims of crime who've defended themselves are victimized a second time when they are forced to defend their conduct in a criminal trial, fighting for their lives at their very own financial expense, if not their own financial ruin. When it comes to establishing self-defense, current law is a catch-22. A defendant can assert their right of self-defense, but if not successful,